6'7".
6'7".
Yeah. Oh wait, he's 6'7".
That's crazy.
I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't like a big geography guy.
It could be so fun and so yee, and then all of a sudden it can be like, man, this is just awful, and it's just the worst feeling in the world.
Welcome into Overtime, presented by Perfection One. As always, I'm your host, John Bruce, alongside Shayne Combs. Welcome to episode 88, I hope, of Southern Ohio Sports Authority's premiere podcast. Yeah, this is, we've done this a lot. I think it's 88. I try to change it every week after, like when we're making the list, and I'm like, I think I got it. I think it's right, but not 100% sure.
Sounds right. I won't go to the bank with it, but I think that sounds about right.
We have a producer in the studio today, Kenneth Hay. I don't know what he's doing, but he's behind the stuff over there, so he's doing something. So if anything you hear aloud, anything, we're gonna blame it on Kenneth. So you are watching us. We are filming here in the Chillicothe Sports Card Studios, located inside the SOSA dugout in downtown Chillicothe. That's one of the first things we want to talk about.
Yeah.
The dugout opening Wednesday. So if you're watching this before Wednesday and you haven't seen it yet or anything about it, you can go onto our website, sosaohio.com/thedugout. So sosaohio.com/thedugout, and you can reserve your spot. You can read all about it as well. And if you aren't sure, we're gonna kind of let you know that you should be pretty sure about it. But I believe Wednesday, when it is opening, they'll be filming something, and then we'll have it put out and whatnot, so you'll be able to see what it looks like exactly. But me and Shayne got to look at it this morning. Well, not this morning. We're at 4 now, so we got to look at it this afternoon. And man, it's really coming together really well.
It's really nice. I mean, it's. I've been excited about it for some time now, and now to kind of see it with the really nice attention to detail, the nice technology. Kids eat that stuff up nowadays. Like so the coaches that are tuned in this week, what I would say is you owe it to yourself just to give it a try. Maybe bring a player or two, bring half your team, bring your full team for that matter, and just try it out one time. And I think what you'll find is there's a lot of things kids like, and then what that does, it introduces the kids maybe to get more of that extra work in, more of that off-season work in. Kids respond today to the technology, to the instant feedback, to the numbers. It used to be coaches could just say, "Hey, John, you're doing this." "Okay, coach." We're now a lot of times, they need a little bit more of a number. They need a little bit more of an analytic type thing, and that's what it offers. So I'm real excited. It's a beautiful setup. There's even a little entertainment involved if you want to go that route. If you want a little bit more of a serious workout, we can set it up for you that way. But you really, really owe it to yourself to at least try it out one time to see if it fits your need.
Yeah, I tried it out with the hit tracks, and I don't even know who the person was that I was technically has. It was just a name we couldn't figure out how to delete. So I will tell you, it does track up to 68 miles an hour off the exit velo. I might have hit 6.7 the first time, and then, other than that, then I got ramped up to 68, and I was like, I'm done. I feel good. I'm 41. I feel great. And, now Kenneth's doing, because apparently 41's a thing, right? Okay. I hope that wasn't. Am I going to get, canceled for doing that? Okay, he's shaking his head no, so that's good. I don't know. The kids have numbers. I don't know. The numbers are different than they used to be, and probably a better thing. Especially with the fact they don't really mean anything.
I don't even know.
So
but that's the thing. At my age, I stopped trying to know.
Right, and that's why you have to adapt, though. You adapt to things, and that's why we have hit tracks in the SOSA dugout. Before, all we knew was, hey, did you hit the ball hard? I think. It felt good. Well, now, analytically, you can track it in there, and that's one of the really cool things. There's a couple mounds in there as well that you can use to work on pitching. There's different areas. There's going to be different tee work areas as well, bands and whatnot. There's a lot of different chances to improve, not just hitting-wise in the dugout, but just overall as a player as well.
And what happens with facilities, this, and at a small school, believe me, I know this, you start – your basketball teams are still in the tournament, and then you want to get your junior high softball in, you want to get your junior high baseball in, you want to get your JV guys some looks, you want to get your varsity, and there's only so much gym time or whatever facility you have at your school available, this gives you another opportunity, like I said, to introduce your kids to this. You could use it as a group, but then they too could get more comfortable, and they can sign up to use it individually or in small group.
Yeah, and really, as you get older and you're more precise in what you do, you can break it down in those half-hour groups. So if you want to bring in your team and you've got 12 players and you want to bring in 2 groups of 6, you can knock out a good workout in a half
and
hour.
like you said, area for bullpens, things like that. So you can get all of your preseason baseball workout in a pretty short amount of time.
Yeah, so make sure you check out sosaohio.com/thedugout to reserve your time, see the hours, and then just keep looking out on our socials and whatnot because you will see it. Don't check out our whatnot because apparently that's taking a break right now. It's been a couple weeks. I don't know if we'll see the collectibles again for quite some time, but we're working on it. So let's jump into our discussion for the week. So one of the things that you said, this was something that you really wanted to talk about. You coach for a few years at a small school. We'll just say a few. Won a lot of games. Won a few district titles. Had some pretty good success. And now that you have a chance to look at it from, take a step back, but also what you've known from it. What are some of the factors that you believe are actually hurting small school athletic departments?
Well, I think as we go through this, I've really researched a little bit. I've talked to some administration. I wanted to get take. A lot of times, what happens is when you're invested in it, right? As you step back, you get a bigger picture, and you just look. I think the thing I would say is these things impact all schools, and big schools as well as small schools. But I think what happens in the small school feels it a little bit harder. You may not have the facilities, the resources, obviously the enrollment, just to offset some of the different things. So I think these things hit home a little bit harder. So what I wanted to do is go through one at a time, and I just wanted to get your take. And then what I'm hoping is we even get more feedback and we can start discussion just in terms of trying to help grow programs. Number one, I think, would be classified as leadership turnover. I think what happens, obviously that can hurt at any level, but I think at the small school it becomes really important, be it obviously in the coaching staff, but a lot of times we just think of head coach. A lot of times it can be turnover if you're looking for a JV coach every year, a freshman coach every year, junior high is huge. If you're, in your athletic department, your AD, like if your AD is turned over every other year, now you get some different culture and philosophies and scheduling, boosters. So any level of leadership, what I found is in the small school setting, it really makes it tough to have a vision and stay consistent because obviously that community involvement's a must at that smaller school level. And not to say it doesn't hurt the bigger school. I just think with some different resources, sometimes they can, flip the switch and get going a little quicker. What I found at the small school, though, is if you start getting a lot of that turnover in leadership, it gets really difficult to have a clear vision in terms of where you want to go.
Well, and you mentioned leadership turnover, and a lot of times you'll see, I know just for a school in our area, Bloom Carroll's football coach just left to go to Lancaster. Well, what do you think? Is Lancaster a better program? Probably not on like the state level or even year to year, but it's bigger. You have more resources, and you're going to have some turnover in that way. And it happens with, I believe, most like administrative positions as well as like, hey, if I can go to this bigger place, it's probably more money, but also, it's a little more prestige, I guess, even though there's nothing wrong with being at a small school. It's just kind of the way people think and whatnot. So I think that's a way for, that's why we have so much turnover on some of those positions. And I'm glad you said the JV coach aspect of it, because as someone who was a longtime JV coach, I know one of the things that kind of helped was consistency of knowing who's going to be there year to year. And it took me a little longer to move up to be a varsity assistant because that position just kept kind of refilling. Right. And it was almost like, well, I know you're going to be there, so we got to make sure we have 2 people that are for sure going to be there all the time. So if it's going to constantly change at that higher level, it'd be better than to have the assistant than maybe the person that's in charge of the secondary team. But
Right.
yeah, I can see that being a big impact.
And I think what happens, John, is you have to be efficient at the small school because you have less room for error. So like what happens is, to use like a bigger scale thing in sports, like I'm a Reds fan, you're a Cubs fan. So you have a Reds payroll, you have a Cubs payroll, and then say you have like the Dodgers payroll. So like you look at it from a standpoint of you can't afford to miss on a contract. So like if the Reds take a big swing and they miss, it could set them back 2, 3, 4 years. Whereas the Dodgers miss on one where they just write a check and fix it. You see what I'm saying? So like my point is it hurts everybody. But the ability to absorb it or go on. I like what you said, too, about sometimes you want people to better themselves or to have opportunities to move up or to – I think that's when you have to make another great hire. If you make a good hire here and that person moves on to something else, we got to make another good hire and eventually go. I think that's where, too, the turnover in the AD, turnover in some of your school administration – that can be valuable too, because a lot of times the way you keep the coaches there long term is you have a constant vision and you kind of make it. Longevity in coaching is a two-way street. We work on 1-year contracts, so it's one of those things where you look at people that have been somewhere for a long time. Well, they've wanted to be there. Well, then it's been really important to keep them there too. And I think coaches would tell you. When they've worked somewhere 10, 15, 20, 25 years that, it's been a pretty good relationship both ways.
Yeah, it's, and I'll just throw out the, mentioning the Bloom Carroll, but that was, they had hired, Wade Bartholomew. He moves on to Olentangy, and then they bring in Jeremy McKinney, and it was like almost seamless as it just kept it going. And that's what you mean. It's like even though it's not like when you think Bloom, you don't think small school, but it is in comparison to
that it is.
Yeah. But that's what you have to do. You have to continue the growth of the school, of the program, and everything that way. It continues on the best it can. So that's one factor. You said there's 3 factors, correct? So let's move on to the second factor.
Okay, number 2, I'm going to say specialization from the athletes. And please understand when I say this, the athlete in today's time has every right to specialize. I'm not talking about that. So each kid, each family, they more than have the opportunity to do that, and that's well within their rights. And I've seen a lot of kids be very successful in that, and they love it, and they do. I'm talking about terms of program and athletic program development. So when we talk about sharing athletes, we talk about the adults being on the same page. But when you do have a lot of that specialization, it hurts. I would even argue at some of the bigger schools, you take like maybe I should have had one in mind already. Take like a Miami Trace. That's a bigger school in our area, in our coverage area. They're considered a pretty big school. Even at a bigger school, if all of a sudden their athletic department right now is really, really good, especially on the boys' side. Girls have had success in several sports as well. But if some of those kids just woke up one day and just said, okay, we're all just going to play one sport, they'd fill it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So imagine at the small school, a lot of times we say, next man up. Like one of my honorable mentions was injuries or things like that I've heard people say. Sometimes there is no next man up or next girl up when it comes to, a small school. There is no replacement. So I think the specialization, albeit every right of the kid and the family to do, I do think that can really, really hurt a 3 to 4 year stretch of a small school if they're not able to kind of spread their athletes around.
Yeah, I completely agree. But I'll just use your example. Where would Miami Trace basketball be if Adam Guthrie, Julian Baker don't play basketball along with football? Those are Division I athletes that are multi-sport athletes. Why can't kids at smaller schools, play multiple sports as well? It should be, it shouldn't be that difficult to play multiple sports. But whenever you specialize, and then I know, if I don't want to go too far into it or go after like any one thing. I'm going after one thing, but it's like, it's basketball season. Well, now you're seeing club volleyball traveling all over the country, and like that's going to take away some really good athletes from playing girls basketball. Boys basketball, like in the summer, you only get a little bit of time to really work. So when they decide, hey, coach, I'm going to go, I'm going to just play summer baseball. Well, that's where you're going to see different schools are making adjustments, trying to go with morning workouts and maybe morning scrimmages. That way they can try to make things work, but you still don't always get all the kids. And then also small schools, I don't even know, I don't know exactly what your third topic is, but like small schools, sometimes you have kids that have to work. And when kids have to work, that can make it really hard for them to do multiple sports. I know like Pay Valley has a really talented kid that has to make a decision about a job or playing baseball in the spring. I'm sure Coach Metler would love to have him, but at the same time, it's like, well, that's going to be your career. Yeah. And it's just you have to make kids are growing up at way faster of a pace than they used to be.
No question. That's an academic thing where by the time you're into your senior year, it's almost becoming more of a 7th through 10th grade model, with the 11th and 12th grade being far more into, off to college or career or whatever. You're not wrong there. I think it kind of overlaps with what I said in the first point too, though. If you have the consistent leadership, and you have some consistency, say in the junior high, if you have some consistency in those feeder programs, a lot of times coaches are on the same page. And while kids are young and maybe while they're still willing to try some different things, sometimes you can keep them in a program. So that's where you keep that elite football player in the basketball program, or we know the spring sports can oftentimes get overlooked nowadays, and spring sports can still be quite a factor in that way if you can get some kids just to be more open-minded to playing the second or third sport for sure.
Okay, so let's go. We've gone through factor 1 and 2. You said there's 3, correct? So let's jump into the third factor.
Now, this is the one, like I said, I had a lot of different honorable mentions. This is the one that ended up being the third point because as I talked to more and more people, some would say it more just matter of fact, and some would dance around it, but I think it's who you play. And we talk about scheduling all the time. And what happens is when you're a smaller school, to fill out your schedule, there's a good chance you're going to be playing bigger schools, right? If you're a Division VII high school in Southeast Ohio, you're either going to play like size or bigger. So now if you're a Division III or IV, then maybe it's a little bit different. But I think what you'll find is forget your enrollment, just whatever you are in that particular program. And when I say that, I'm not talking about like this year. I'm talking about over like the last 5 to 10 years and where you project over the next 5 years. Who are you playing? Like I see a lot of teams that will probably end up going 7-15 in basketball this year, and they're not that bad.
Right.
You let me flip their schedule to a couple different things, I can make them 15-7. You see what I'm saying? And that's just a reality of maybe where do you fit in your current conference, and again, not just now, but where do you fit in a decade sample size? You know what I mean? If you look at the last 5, project the next 5, where are you fitting in your conference? Well, there's a lot of your schedule, and then in your non-league, are you what types of schools are you playing? Are you randomly just saying yes to the first people it calls so that the AD can fit his or her schedule and be done? Or are you putting a thought in with each and every program? Hey, this program, they're not at a point just to be throwing them to the wolves and having them go 2-20. You talk about killing a program, go 2-20, 2, 3, 4 years in a row. And again, if you start having leadership turnover and you start having athletes say, I'm going to go, this isn't for me, I'm going to go do this. That all see how all three kind of work together. So when I talk about this, I'm never talking about come on and say Cupcake City. I'm talking about giving your kids just a fair opportunity to be in a successful environment and giving your program a chance to just be at a competitive level.
Yeah, and you don't want to be stuck in the now some places like I'll use like a Sims Valley where they're kind of I not super limited by how they can schedule, but kind of where they're at does make it a little more difficult to schedule.
Sure.
But you got to be a little bit creative with how you schedule, maybe when you schedule certain teams, because it's it is going to be difficult for some of you to, like, if it's a baseball game, baseball, softball, it can be difficult to get teams to come there and make it there in time to play a day game. So I think there are some different factors along with that factor, but I think your scheduling, you have to be really smart about it, because if you're not, then as you said, 2-20, that can kill a program. I mean, we've got a local program here in Chillicothe and girls basketball that's had just turnover after turnover after turnover, different coaches, and at different times, I know they tried scheduling one program that had been down, and that program kind of lifted itself back up, and it was like, well, we got to get them off the schedule. So when you see them win 4, 5, 6 games, then it's like, oh, that's good, because then maybe you can get some more kids out to stick with it, because it's hard to keep kids really interested and motivated when you might win 10 total games in high school.
Well, and it is. And look, I hope people recognize it's not an excuse. As you said, I coached 30 years, and I've coached pretty much 25, 26 of those in some way at Paint Valley. Yeah. And as a small school in the league, we've struggled in the league. I mean, I don't hide from that. We did not have a lot of success in the league. Now, did the league help prepare us? Sure. As you said, we were fortunate enough to win 3 district titles in 14, 15, and 21. Did the league have a lot to do with that? I think so. But at the same time, have I watched other struggles at other parts of my career where we've had teams that haven't been that bad that just, fight like heck to try to go 500? Yeah. So, and that's okay. But my point is, there's a lot of sports out there, and there's a lot of different things. That's not an option, right? They're fighting just to, like you said, win 4, 5, 6 games. And for a lot of those kids, they don't do that. Well, then all of a sudden, I'm going to go do something else. I'm going to go try this. I'm going to try this. Or maybe the best player, like I'm going to get more into the track side. I can go over here individually and do this, or so there's just all of these factors. So I guess my hope is, I appreciate you talking about it with me. My hope is that we'll get some different feedback on some things that people experience. Give us your thoughts on specialization. Give us your thoughts on scheduling. Give us your thoughts on hiring coaches. Is the goal to hire a coach that's going to be there a long time, or no, it's to hire the best coach, and if that coach ends up leaving, then we'll hire the next best coach. I would love to get feedback, because this is something I've been really talking to a lot of people and trying to document.
Yeah, so we've got our socials. You can leave comments. That doesn't happen a whole lot here, but you can leave comments on any of our stuff wherever we put it out, and let us know, or reach out to us individually, and we'll discuss it, or we'll use it for next week on next week's show.
Well, I've had 2 or 3 people over the last month on a particular topic reach out and say, hey, I didn't really want to post it online. Do you care to give me a call? And we've talked on the phone. I've really appreciated that. So love to hear from you on these particular things that we're talking about.
Yeah, 100% agree. So now, one of the big things in the winter season that we talk about, boys and girls basketball. We will start with boys basketball. A big week in the Apple City last week. One good, one bad for Jackson, but those 2 games are just going to make them better and better. Let's start with the first one. So Wheelersburg at Jackson on Tuesday night. Just an outstanding atmosphere, an outstanding win for Jackson in that night.
No question. I think as you talk about Jackson, and this is going to kind of be repetitive when we get to Valley's weekend, I think a lot of times what happens is it's their ability to play out in front or their ability to catch up. You remember me talking about playing at Jackson's like going to the dentist. We've used that analogy, and I think what happens is when you're able to get off to a good start and play out in front, you dictate the tempo. You can kind of make the game, especially when you're old and as strong with the ball and as skilled as the Jackson kids are. They can handle the basketball and do a lot of things, and I think that happened to them a little bit. Where in other situations they get behind a little bit. Now maybe they're forced to play a little bit more out of character, which they're far more capable of now than they are earlier in their career. But you see what I'm saying there? There's a lot of times where if you can at least play out in front of Jackson, it's easier to flip the script and get them to play a little bit more the way you want them to.
Yeah, and it's you want to make them uncomfortable and make them have to maybe rely on the outside shot a little bit more, as opposed to when they run through their offense and the outside shot they get is the exact shot that they want on that possession, and then
it's a lot harder to run 45-second offensive possession in the third quarter if you're down 2 or 3 possessions.
Exactly. Yeah. So, the fact that they can play that style makes them so difficult to match up with. Now, one of the things, and this is, kind of, there's a little bit of a topic going on like Southeastern Ohio preps, but there was a pregame dunk that was called for a technical in that. So, what are your thoughts? We didn't talk about this part. What are your thoughts on that? Now, for me, and I'll just kind of just go into it with like, I don't love the rule, but it's a rule. It's been a rule for ever. So follow the rules.
That's it.
But does that one kind of fill into that, like, hey, why do we have to have 2 people at the bottom on a free throw when it's a two shot foul, maybe a 3-shot foul? Like, why do we have to do this? Now, obviously, it's on the officials are doing their job. They enforce the rules. But is it just kind of like maybe like a rule that probably could be changed?
It certainly can be changed. It goes back to what we talked about last week of you might be mad at the rule, but I like winning,
yes.
So you might as well follow it. You see what I'm saying? So it's one of those things. Now, do I think the rule's outdated? Yeah. We have these things called breakaway rims and stuff, you know what I mean? And they're a little bit more capable of having people dunk on them and so forth. So I don't think it's a huge deal. If you warm up for 15 minutes and coaches want you to spend your time dunking, then knock yourself out. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if it used to be like more of an intimidation taunting thing or whatnot. It's kind of like in the 3-second rule, they put the 3-second rule in, I assume, so that like a Wilt Chamberlain quit standing down under the rim and scoring 100 points. You know what I mean? Like it's
allegedly.
Yeah. So it really is as simple as that. It's if we're having a discussion, do I like the rule? No, not really. Do I think it's a big deal if kids would dunk in warm-ups? No, again, you have so much time to warm up and do whatever. But until they change that rule, it's probably not the best practice to start the game with allowing the other team to, shoot some free throws and possess the ball. Exactly. You see what I'm saying? So it's just it's as simple as that for me.
Well, and then just getting to that, Berg starts down 13-2. I mean, you start down 13-2, and that makes you have to climb uphill the entire game against the team, as you said, as fun as going to the dentist to play, and it just makes things much more difficult. Now, in the game, Wheelersburg just kept making it interesting. They got it down to 6 at the half. After 3, it was still down 6. We'll get into something that happened in that as well, but Wheelersburg just battled, but in the end, it was Jackson that was able to knock them off, give Wheelersburg their first loss of the season.
Yeah, they did. And again, what an incredible athletic matchup. A lot of strength there, a lot of physicality, but going to be both. I think both teams really benefit from that type of matchup as they move down the stretch of their conference races and then into the postseason. That's a game that I just think that two teams that have some similarities and the one gets off to a good start, and as a result, they're able to play the game in the particular tempo and overall control that they want.
Mm-hmm. And in that game, the thing I was talking about, and usually we go into like standout performances on it, but Braylon Rucker from Wheelersburg scored his 1,000th career point, so Congratulations to him. Man, is he outstanding athlete. Mm-hmm. Outstanding basketball player, outstanding football player, just one of those just winners that you want to have in your program, and he's done it for a long time for them and will continue for the rest of the season, but outstanding for him.
And again, gets back to what we talked about earlier. Young man would have every right to specialize if he would have decided to do that growing up, but look at the opportunities he would have cost himself. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I know it's a pleasure to watch that young man do a lot of different things.
Right.
So I'm certainly glad he picked that because I enjoy his game.
Right. He's on our and you may not even notice him on the play on one of our biggest clips we've ever done, which was the short of Kenyon Evans' unbelievable reverse, breaking a bunch of tackles, just going all over the field. Well, all of a sudden you just see number 4 come and just throw a block 75 yards downfield right near the goal line. And then if you don't know it, that's the quarterback. So, like, just plays like that are what's going to kind of endear you to your teammates and show leadership. And that's what you want out of a kid like that. That's why he was the starting quarterback in a state, for a state runner-up team this year. And this is a basketball team that, well, they didn't have a great week this week are going to have a lot of success.
They're fine. I mean, they're, like I said, they got the late start. They ended up getting off to a good start. And then they've come across a couple really good opponents, and they've lost some basketball games. But I don't think anyone's ever going to doubt the skill set, the athleticism, the physicality. They're going to overwhelm a lot of teams on their schedule just with their bigger, faster, stronger traits. Yeah,
they got a really interesting, or a couple interesting ones this week. We'll talk about one of them kind of at length as one of our previews, but also play Uniota over at Shawnee State. That'll be a really fun matchup between two kind of similar size teams, besides like Uniota's Dawson Mitchell, but really good senior point guards on both sides. Should be a fun one over there at Shawnee State.
Well, I think it's an interesting matchup. What you're saying is true, but if you turn on the film, the physicality is something that's bothered Uniota a little bit. So, like when you look at the Jackson matchup and so forth, so that'll be a great test for Uniota just to see if they can answer the bell there from the physicality standpoint.
Yep, 100%. So make sure you check that one out. So another game for Jackson. This one wasn't as fun for them as the first one, but man, they were, this was still a battle on Saturday or Friday night. They took on Chillicothe. Chillicothe really, I bet, made Miami Trace's weekend even better by knocking off Jackson. They go down to Jackson, and Caden Cox was unbelievable for Chillicothe, which is pretty much a pretty common theme. Is he's pretty unbelievable each and every game, but he had scores in the 20s in the game. I believe it was 24. And Chillicothe was able to get, they got a big win over Uniota, but this is probably their signature win of the season, to go to Jackson and win. Their two best wins on the road at two really tough environments.
No, there's no question about it. I know in basketball and football, we've talked about them, wanting to take that next step in the FAC, and what was it, last fall. They ended up knocking off Miami Trace in football, and then this year they weren't able to get either one. Played both of them, fairly competitive, and then this year in basketball, getting that type of win. Here's the difference, John, from the. I had a chance to watch that game back. Chillicothe played out in front.
Yeah.
So like we were talking about the start, Chillicothe leads at 16-12, then they're up 33-28 at halftime. Well, they were able to consistently play out in front and maybe force Jackson just to play with just a little bit more, to where you didn't have to guard him for quite as long and so forth. And then it was 51-48, and I think Cox had a miss maybe at the line, and Jackson had a lot of opportunities late in that game. I know they had a nice cut and they weren't able to convert at the free throw line. Then they missed the layup. They had a turnover, but finally Cox and Stone King were able to put some free throws down, and that's where your final score comes from. But you're right, that's a big-time win for Chillicothe, and it kind of gives you the idea of how you have to win different types of games to go on to have one of those special tournament runs. So this type of game goes a long way for Chillicothe, but I also think it becomes a great learning tool for Jackson to kind of take a look at of how they want to play and what their identity looks like when they're playing from slightly behind compared to in the lead.
Yeah, and it's kind of what we talked about with that last game of, Jackson's a team you don't want to, you don't want to get behind, because they're going to make it really difficult offensively for you to come back because what they can do with the ball. Chillicothe is a team you don't want to get behind because they're hard to score on at all.
Yes.
And they don't play great. Sometimes they don't play great offense. So if you get ahead of them, then it could be difficult for them to come back.
Yeah.
Even if
Jackson's a hard team to take the ball from.
Yes.
You can, even if you guard them well, they may sit there and just run their stuff. You know what I mean? Because they're older, they're stronger, they're very skilled, they have good footwork, they pass and catch well. So it's just hard sometimes to turn them over to create opportunities to come back.
Right. Yeah, and that's in that game, Caden Cox, as we said, was outstanding. Andrew Hammond was really good. Hammond has really started to come along a little bit. You could see it at times last year, but it just feels like his confidence is growing. Him in the mid-range is something that a lot of people don't do really well. So the fact that he can knock down that elbow jumper pretty consistently makes him really difficult to stop. And then Cooper Stone King. If all three of those are in double figures, good luck.
Well, I give Stone King a lot of credit because remember the one question mark I had on our preview show all the way back at the beginning of the year was Stone King and Cox, were they going to be able to adapt to the ball handling responsibility this year playing in the backcourt without the true point guard? And I'll give Stone King a lot of credit. He's really stepped up. I've watched him in some roles. Obviously, Cox has helped as well. But I've watched Stone King really step up and do a nice job of doing some of those point guard intangibles at some key moments.
Yep, and it's a really big win for Chillicothe. They were coming off of 2 consecutive losses to really good teams, but they needed to get a big one, and they're able to do so to keep themselves in the FAC race. Now, them and someone else is going to have to take care of business against Miami Trace, and we'll talk about Miami Trace a little bit later. Yeah, good luck with that. Miami Trace a little bit later as well. So let's jump to one of our streaming games of the week. We were down at Lucasville Valley back-to-back nights, kind of tale of 2 nights for Lucasville Valley. And this one, we'll start with a 48-33 win over South Webster. A really nice second half for Lucasville Valley. They won the second half 32-12.
Yeah, I was fascinated by this matchup going in. Carson and I talked on the pregame, and he asked me what I thought the key would be, and I thought it was one of the more simple analysis we've had all year. It was tempo, right?
Yeah.
It was you have one team that would want to play one way. South Webster would rather, not South Webster minds getting up and down every now and then, but I think they probably would rather structure you in the half court a little bit and get the best shot and so forth. Well, that's how the first half played out. They jumped out. They got 3 from Johnson, McClintock, and Bernard, and they were out, I believe, almost to a 21-13 lead. I think Valley getting it back to 21-16 at the half was really important. But I thought what Valley did was they went to the half, they were able to regroup, and they were able to come out, and they went from a little bit more of some of the token pressure to we're going to have chaotic pressure, and you are going to play fast. Now, we may give up who knows what, but you're going to shoot the ball quick. You're going to play fast. And they were able to poke the ball free, cause 3 or 4 turnovers early third quarter. They went, I think it was a 20-5 third quarter run, and they were off. I thought Bender was terrific with his effort. And again, I hate to single out one kid because I thought the Valley group all played really, really hard. I just thought he really jumped out at me in that third quarter with some hustle plays. And then obviously the Indians were off and running. And then now all of a sudden you make, as I just said with Jackson, now you make South Webster play a little catch up, maybe playing a little faster than they wanted to. And it was just too big a hill to climb.
Yeah, and then that, the kind of the backdoor alley-oop tip-in that Bender had to start the second half
was just a little bit athletic.
Yeah, just super athletic play by Bender, and that really helped spark them to start the second half. But as you said, that defensive performance in that third quarter really carried them over, and it was just a dynamite performance by the Indians.
Yeah, it really was, and credit to the kids and the coaches there at the half, understanding what they needed to do and then being able to go out and do it.
Yeah, and in that game, you mentioned Bender had 12, Christian Coppin had 9, 7 rebounds as well. Jalen Dunham was really good. He had a big play in the half. He only split the free throws, but there was 7 seconds left. He goes coast to coast and draws a foul and gets them, 1 point closer. And it just felt like it was a play where it looked like it maybe was designed for someone else, and he just got it and went to the hoop and was able to get to the line, and that gave them a little extra momentum going into the break. But in that game, Bryson McClintock with 13 for South Webster. Hunter Bernard with only 6 was probably, one of the better defensive jobs we've seen on him over the last couple of years here on SOSA.
I agree, but I think a lot of what they did, John, was because they made the game so chaotic that South Webster couldn't really run its stuff. In the third quarter, it just became kind of a freelance. And what you do there is you take the coach out of play a little bit. Sometimes when you use token pressure, a well-coached team has been taught, hey, you go here, I go here. We use good pass fakes. We step to the pass. We do, you know what I'm saying? It's a fundamental 101. Sometimes when a team comes out and they just start trapping all over the place, the coach is over there and the kids are either prepared or they're not at that point. I mean, it's one of those things where it just kind of got chaotic. And I thought the athleticism of Valley and the versatility of Valley really started to take over.
Yeah, it's just it made it really difficult for South Webster. It was a really good win for Valley on the night. So let's jump to Saturday, but we're going to highlight one thing first. This kind of goes into that a little bit of our standout performances, but we'll start with Chesapeake's Maddox Kazee scores his 1,000th career point in that win on Saturday night. We had it on the live stream. It might be the most individual videos we've ever put out of one thing in a night because we had so many people there that evening over in Lucasville. So congratulations to him. Only his junior season, he has been unbelievable for them.
Yeah, he's so good. I mean, he really is. I mean, when I turned the film on this week to prepare for that call, and then getting to see him in person, had him in person last year at the end of the year down to Conva. He's really, really good. I mean, here's a kid that scores 1,000 points. But as we said on the call, you get the impression there's 3 or 4 kids for Chesapeake that could score a lot more if they had to. But they kind of like winning, you know what I mean? And they kind of like each other, and they share it, and they turn down good shots to get great shots. This kid can shoot the 3. Obviously, he's athletic as all get out. But I'll tell you what I love about it. We talked about this with Blake Fitch at Uniota earlier in the year when he had 1,000. Here's a junior that has 1,000 points, and he's a big-time scorer, obviously. Yeah. But, man, if you're a basketball person, you'll watch him do 2 or 3 things that you're like, man, he's a big-time defender. He's a versatile defender, can guard all 5 spots on the floor at the high school level. He's a great passer, a great teammate. I really, really enjoyed watching him play the other night.
Yeah, he's dynamic. And if you watch the post-game interview with him and Philip Thacker, I asked Philip, you seem like you love playing defense. He's like, yeah, I really enjoy it. But also, when you got those guys, we all got a job pretty much. And pointing out like a Caden Perkins, Carson Frecka, they've got some outstanding players. I mean, John Cooper Barker went in double figures in our stream down against Fairland.
I thought even Scarberry came in and did some nice things defensively. And that next pass in line does a good job.
Chapman's got great feet, soft hands.
Gives good depth to Fresca.
Yeah, it's just, it's a team that, there's a reason why they're 12-1.
Let me ask you this here, because I'm glad you started with that, because all credit to Chesapeake. Anyone who's talked to me about basketball knows I think Chesapeake's really good. Let me ask you about Valley a little bit there. You and I have worked with high school kids a long time. Big time dance Friday night, league game, bands playing, the student section, what do they call it? The hype tribe?
Hype tribe.
Yeah, top
much
to bottom.
better name than what it used to be.
Okay, top to bottom, all the way up there. That place Friday night was electric. Saturday night, typical Saturday night non-league, right? Not quite the same atmosphere. You could almost feel it in the pregame a little bit, where Chesapeake had not played the night before. They'd had the one night off. Now, Chesapeake was the better basketball team. I don't think anyone's doubting that. But the only point I'm making is, did you sense the same thing I did a little bit about Valley got off to the 9-2 deficit right off the bat? They tried to use the timeout. It just seemed like it was a tough thing for them to recreate the energy they had the night before. Plus, they were playing a team that kind of liked to play the same way they play and play it better. I mean, if I'm being honest. But you follow what I'm saying there?
Yeah, 100%. And we're on our way back. You and Carson were after the game on Friday, and you brought that up. I was like, oh man, this might not be a great game on Saturday, because it was like all those different little things add up, and it can be hard, even if you're playing a team that's extremely good, one of the better teams in the state of Ohio in Division 5.
No doubt about it.
It's still, can make it hard to ramp yourself back up that next night. But man, when you're playing Chesapeake, they are going to make it hard for you to ever feel like you're in a good position, because man, their defense, and that's, you see their scoring, you see the points they're putting up, and you can be like, man, that's,
In today's basketball, they're averaging up around 70 points a game. Yeah. That's getting it.
And one of the things we've talked about is their defense. And it's like, well, yeah, they can score it, but man, they
I think we had
love
them
playing
at 44 going into the other night per game. Yeah. So.
Yeah, so I mean, they're an elite offensive team in 2026 of like, if you score over 70 points a game right now with how physical the game is, that's pretty elite. So you've got three pretty big time scorers because Frackett can really score inside, but then you have Perkins and Kazee, and then you've got Thacker and Barker that can really do a lot of different things. I mean,
Thacker's a big time defender as well.
And Barker, back-to-back games we've had him, he's been the guy to take the last shot of a quarter. Like they're running an action to get him a shot. Yeah. Where it's like, well, he might be fourth on the depth chart or on the scouting report when you look at it. And it's just they've got role players that know their roles, a couple good players that come off the bench. So the Isaacs gave them good minutes as well. So you're getting about 8 deep, 4 really good seniors that start and can contribute, and then you've got the conductor with Kazee. Man, he can do so many different things, and we had said it on the game preview that we put out on Saturday. Me and Carson of like, man, if he hits threes, I don't know what you do, because you go out and guard. Well, then he's gonna beat your baseline. He's gonna beat you to the basket. He's strong too, so he can finish, or he can find his teammates, and he's very unselfish. And that's what makes that team so good, too, is how unselfish they are, because they're looking to find the next man. They're find the next shooter. If someone's open, Kazee doesn't mind giving it up, and that's what makes him so valuable and makes that team so good.
No, there's no question about it. And the only team that's been able to get him got him into the 40s. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think that's the recipe too. I mean, it's easy to sit here and say that. Now go out and get them to play in the 40s. That's a whole different animal. But I do think the trick is trying to get them to slow down just a little bit, try to handle the ball against them and see if you can't limit possessions. And that might be the next thing for Peak to really learn from it as well, for them to go do what they want to do in terms of going back to the regional and hopefully Final Four stage, is the ability, if they do get a team where their defense can't create the easy offense we watched the other night, can they execute well enough in the half court to win those types of games?
Yeah, and it's going to make them, and there's some teams at the top of that Division 5 that are going to make it to where you've really got to play that half court. And one of the teams we'll talk about in a little bit as well. So, just an outstanding performance from Chesapeake on Saturday. Go back and watch that game if you haven't. If you're a Valley fan, you may want to watch the Friday night game as well. So we appreciate everybody down at
Valley was awesome, man. Yeah. They you know what impressed me about them? It's funny you said it that way. Is Friday night the big win, all the festivities. Saturday night they take it on the chin. They were the same people. They were the same hospitality. They were just really, really good people, and they treated us really, really well. We appreciate that.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate it. And the best thing that we've been able to say throughout this entire year is we've been able to say that about everywhere we've been. So, I mean, we've appreciated the hospitality from everybody that's hosted us throughout this year. But, the back-to-back nights from Valley really stood out for us, and we appreciate everything that they were able to make a little bit easier for us as well. So let's jump over to our standout performances. This is an area where normally we talk about individual achievements, big games, everything like that. This one, we had some individual achievements that we talked about in some other big games, so that's where 2 of our big ones are already covered. So let's jump to a coaching achievement, which was Nelsonville-York's Blaine Gabriel gets career win number 200. It was a 93-60 win over Alexander. Nelsonville-York has been pretty up and down throughout the season, but Gabriel has been a really good coach for a really long time.
Hey, he really has. I've been familiar with Coach Gabriel. Always enjoyed watching his teams play. They play really hard. Obviously impressive to see Nelsonville starting to get healthy. They're put 93 points on the board. It's ironic that it happens against Alexander. Coach Gabriel has some Alexander ties earlier in the career. So, he's someone that works really hard at it, and kids respond to him. They play hard. So congratulations to Coach Gabriel.
Yeah, and it's a Nelsonville team that they've dealt with some injuries throughout the season. We know Alec Thompson was on the mend a little bit earlier, and you get him back, and that makes them a really dangerous team. So for for Nelsonville on the season, 7-6 overall. They did lose a game later in the week to River Valley at River Valley, and that's a really good win for River Valley. But in that win over Alexander, they were able to get 26 points from Champ Schultz, 20 points from Cam Sullivan, 13 from Weston Wheatley, 11 from Gavin Lavey, 15 from Grant Elliott. So you're not even hearing Thompson's name in there yet. So if they're able to get him back, we're not sure of the extent of the injury.
I never did get the timeline on that. I appreciated the feedback that some people were giving us on Nelsonville there, because that made more sense. And listen, you mentioned the River Valley loss. That's becoming quite a tough place to play.
Yes.
River Valley's knocked off a couple people there. So look, Nelsonville can be one of those really scary teams if they find their identity right here at the right time coming down the stretch. What'd you say, 13 games here? So they've got about 10 more games here. They could hit the tournament trail, and they could become a really tough out in the postseason.
And here's where it probably will make the biggest difference. All 5 of those players I mentioned in double figures, none are seniors.
Yeah.
So you have Thompson, who's a senior. You have Bean Martin, who's another quality senior for them. But other than that, they're playing sophomores and juniors. And, man, saw Champ Schultz. He was starting to come along a little bit late in the year last year. Saw him over at a really good game at Huntington late in the season last year. And, in that game as well, Grant Elliott, 15 points, 11 assists in the game. So that's just going to make them and really the youth of the team really kind of, I think, highlights the up and down nature of what they've been able to do.
I don't know that I've paid enough attention to the grade column in the TVC Ohio. That conference has a chance to get really, really good and really, really deep here in the next year or two.
Yeah, right now 4 players averaging in double figures for Nelsonville-York, one of them being Thompson, who's only played 5 games on the season. But you have Grant Elliott, Cam Sullivan, and Champ Schultz, and then you also have Gavin Lavey, who's only 9.6 points a game, so that they're able to put up some points. It's just the defensive end has got to tighten up a little bit, but that's a Nelsonville-York team to keep an eye on. They're not going to win the TVC Ohio this year, but they're a team that could maybe make some noise in the tournament and later on.
Certainly could decide who does.
Exactly.
Obviously they're capable on a given night of beating anybody.
Yeah, this week they are at Miller versus Benton County and then at Logan. So those are all I think the Miller game probably going to be a win regardless, but those are all winnable games, but also tough teams as well. And then next week they're at Meigs, and then you get Wellston and at South Point. So pretty loaded up next 2 weeks. So you're going to see you're going to figure out a lot of things if you're Nelsonville.
The big Nelsonville-Benton County TVC Ohio game. The Vikings, I know, bounced back and got a couple.
Speaking of young teams,
league wins this week. Athens and Alexander, I believe.
Yep. So that's another team that. Dealing with some injuries, but also very young as well. So congratulations to Coach Gabriel. Let's stay in the TVC, but jump over to the Hocking. One of the plays of the week, Waterford's Reece Lang knocks down a shot from beyond half court to lift the Wildcats to a 51-48 overtime win at Federal Hocking. Just a great win for the Wildcats.
Yeah, I watched the shot the first 2 times before I realized it was to win the game.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? That's what's crazy is as I was watching the shot, and I was like, oh, wow, what an incredible shot. And then as I started to pay more attention and read on it, I realized it was to win the game.
Yep.
And then that obviously made it, reminded me of the Adina situation earlier in the year and how I was talking about how sports are, fun and then sports are awful.
Yeah.
and depending on what side you're on there, that's probably how you felt.
I think you worded it as ye.
Yeah, fun. And then other times it can just be cruel.
Yeah, it's in our new opening. So
that's good.
Sorry, Dewey.
I'm glad I could help there. That's good.
We appreciate Dewey Daly, but he is now no longer on the overtime.
Hey, just so Dewey knows, I didn't have anything to do with that.
I was told, hey, get Dewey off of there. I think it was Kenneth that said it. Once again, I'm blaming him as he's back there. And looks like he's really excited to be part of our studio audience here watching tonight. But in that game for Waterford, Lang ended up with 9 points. Finley Pinnock had 19. Weston Fairchild had 13. They actually added a really good win on Saturday over Fort Fry. That's their 3rd straight win. So they're off to a slow start on the season, but they've really started to turn things around over the last week plus. Really good things happening over in Washington County for Waterford. So, once again, let's stay in Washington County. That's like the furthest that we go, and we're going to stay in it. I think we might be staying in it for good coming up later on. We may have that announced coming up. But I mean, we cover all but 5 teams in the South. Like, why not?
Just cover them.
Yeah, just cover them. I mean, we got to go past, Warren and Marietta to go to these other schools anyway, so why not? So that one may be announced fairly
Well, if you
soon.
like basketball, Marietta's not bound to cover. Have you seen them play yet? I had a chance to watch them on film against Megs. Man, they're good.
Yeah, that's the exact team I was picking. 12-2 on the season. How's this for, their 2 losses to undefeated Wheeling Central Catholic out of Wheeling, West Virginia. So as I've said, not a big geography guy, but I know that's not in Ohio.
Right.
So undefeated, number 1 ranked team on Max Preps in the state of West Virginia. And then they also lost to one loss, Steubenville. Now that game was not close, but one loss, Steubenville. Steubenville's one loss, Wheeling Central Catholic. So I mean, it's a Steubenville team last year that if you saw them, we did have them on stream once against Miami Trace, and man, they were a good team. They graduated some really good players, but man, that is a well-coached, really good team. And it appears that they are, on the trail again. This Marietta team, super senior heavy. Look for them again at the Convo in Division III. They've got to get healthy, a couple injuries, but not a super tough schedule to end the year for them, but they're going to go in as one of the top seeds, and they're going to definitely have a excellent chance to get down to the Convo to play in a district championship game, likely against a team from I think it would be from a team from the East, because I think they've kind of split it to where the East with all, 5 of
That's
their
pretty
teams.
much what they've done with all the sports in terms of that D3, correct?
Yeah. All 5 teams in the East. One team gets to win one game and get it. Actually, 2 teams could win one game and get into the district final. But, it's not their fault. It's just, 8 teams in one side and 5 in the other. And each team gets 2 teams to the district finals. So, I would guess we'll see Steubenville there. And then Marietta's going to have a great chance. That Division III is loaded because you've got Jackson, you've got Chillicothe, you've got Miami Trace, you got Marietta. I mean, Warren isn't bad. I mean, they're really well-coached team that's really young. Hillsborough, as we've said, always has at least one really talented player on the court, maybe the best player on the court most nights. Sheridan, always a nice program, and I'm forgetting one team. And this is gonna be high quality. This is where, like, if I was a lot better at editing, I would edit this into whatever. But yeah, what do you want to talk about for the next?
You say Miami Trace.
I said Miami Trace.
So you said all the teams out of the FAC that are 3.
Yep.
And then Oh, well, the one thing I'll talk about while you're doing that is Marietta. Like I said, I had a chance to watch them on film, and they just pass all the eye tests. They're really skilled, so that the physicality and the size and the athleticism jumps out. But then as they start playing, you can't get over their talent level. And like I said, we have a really, really good team there, and Megs out of Pomeroy that is on a 2-year run right now of winning a lot of basketball games. And if you watch that matchup, they almost overwhelm Megs in certain areas. Obviously, the Davis kid can get his shot off against just about anybody, but they just kind of swallowed them up a little bit, and it was something to watch.
Yeah, a lot of 6'3" athletic kids for Marietta. They're going to really guard you and make things really difficult for you as well. They are outscoring opponents 925 to 662 on the season without doing like great math on the 14. That's a lot of points. Now, Athens is the other team. They beat them by 12 on Saturday. Don't really know much about that game other than the final score, so I can't really say much about it. But this is a really good Marietta team, and that's an Athens team that's really young but has some really talented kids as well.
They do. I had a chance to see them on film this week too against Vinton County, and they have some young guard play that's going to be really good. The Chapman kid was pretty impressive. Yeah,
so that's a 8-team district in Division III, and all 8 teams have something that are going to keep the opponent's coach up for a long time thinking about it going into those games. So keep an eye out on Washington County, because Belpre's also been pretty good this year, and Warren going to be good as well. So a really outstanding basketball over in Washington County. And then let's stay in Division III and talk about Miami Trace. They go 2-0 on the week with really good wins over Waverly and Washington. Now, the Waverly game wasn't particularly close at all. And one of the things that when we talked about the dunking in the pregame, one of the things you said, if you want to spend your time dunking in pregame, well, Gage Bowers, when I interviewed him, I was like, you guys seem like you're playing really hard, getting off to good starts. And he said, we've kind of changed up our warm up. We've really, amped up the intensity of our warm up, and it's really paid off. Well, yeah, when you up the intensity of your warm up, it can make you start the games off faster. And by doing so, they've shook off that 2-game losing streak and have just dominated over their last 4 games.
Well, it's funny you say that. I've heard a lot of coaches talk about that. And as you go down to a lot of places, a lot of conferences going down to that 15-minute warm up, you can kind of get right into it and get after it a little bit more. But that can impact you. A lot of times, if you're getting off the bad starts, one of the first places I would look at is how are you warming up. And so I think that's a really mature comment. Hey, this Miami Trace team, they've really handled losing the correct way. When you're a team that, well, I mean, other than the last game of the year, they didn't lose at all last year, right? And then this year they lost the were they back-to-back games?
Yes.
When they lost the 2.
Yeah.
So you talk about handling the adversity pretty well. They looked themselves in the mirror. It sounds like they've improved some different things, and they've come back and not only beating people rather severely.
Yeah, so they've really taken care of business over the last few weeks, and it's been really impressive what they've been able to do. Coach Ackley will be on the Haynes Total Healthcare Coaches College show on Sunday evening, so that'll be a good one to talk about, and just talk about kind of how they've revamp their team after. But man, we talked about some really outstanding players that they have. They've got some really nice pieces.
They've started to incorporate some different athletes that's kind of replaced some of that length and athleticism for a year ago. So that's been really fun to watch. They're really good.
Yeah, it's a really impressive team. So we'll stay on maybe not standout performances, but we'll do kind of a big rundown over 2 really good events. I know, and I'll shout out Good Guys, Good Guys Radio TV radio. I never get the phrasing of it right. It's C103 Country out of, I believe, West Union, but they do a lot of the Shack stuff.
They do.
So the Dave Young Classic, played in honor of Coach Young from down at North Adams. A great event. I was there a couple of years ago. They have 8 games. It starts in the morning. It goes all day. This is how all day it goes. Their live stream was nearly 12 hours, and they didn't get all of the games in because it's just it's one of those things. They've got so many games throughout the day, and they highlight a lot of the Shack teams, and they do it in the right way, and it's just an outstanding event. And then Good Guys put all of it on their live stream as well, and so I was able to go back and not watch all of it consistently, but kind of flip through and see how some different things happened and get some scores. And because of that, we appreciate the great work that they do. So if you haven't seen any of the games, listen to when we're going to say they were, and then just kind of click through it, and you'll be able to find that game. It started, first game was Blanchester, a 43-41 win over Ripley. It was actually a buzzer beater for Blanchester to win that. Portsmouth Clay won their 2nd straight game, and a really impressive win over New Boston on Friday. Just absolutely put it on them. And really impressive. They get a 49-34 win over West Union. So a good win for the Panthers there. Coach Larry Howell, it's going to take a little time to get through and get everything that he wants to do with his program, but I feel like that program is going to be on the way to the right direction with him beyond it. The next game was Manchester, a 61-57 win over Western. A nice win for the Greyhounds there. Parker Hayslip had 26 points in the win for the Greyhounds. And then for Western, Foster Davis had 21, Josiah Satterfield had 20. So a pretty high scoring game, but a really entertaining game there. And that was one of the things they did. I felt like they mixed in some of the
Good matchups.
Yeah, good matchups overall. Then you had White Oak with a 48-47 win over Georgetown, which was an interesting matchup because Coach Kopus, this was one of the two really interesting ones of the day of like Coach Kopus coached at Georgetown last year. So he was coaching against a lot of his former players in that one. Brady Brandenburg had a go-ahead free throw with 27 seconds left to win the game. He had 12 points, Sawyer Blair 13. White Oak has been playing a lot better basketball throughout the season as well. And then you had Peebles. Man, really impressive display from them. 79-51 over Norwood from the Cincinnati area. Paxton Ryan with 18. Bo Johnson, 11. Keegan Puckett, 12. Colin Sims with 10. And then, Gage Canelti with 14. So 5 players in double figures for them. I think McClary had like 7 in the game as well. So I mean,
they can really score.
They can really score the basketball. So it looks like they've bounced back from their tough week as well. And then you had Williamsburg with a 47-38 win over Eastern Brown. That was a battle of unbeaten teams, and Grady Barber was the leading scorer for Williamsburg in the game. That was one of those. It was really interesting because of that. He had transferred from Eastern Brown to Williamsburg from kind of what Coach Buechler said. He went home, so it sounds like he must have came there at some point and then went back. So still, that's kind of tough when you're playing against a guy you've played with for the last 3 years. But a good win for Williamsburg there. In that game, Braxton Vance with 12 points, Matthew Dick with 10 points for the Warriors. As we said, their first loss.
They'll be fine.
Yeah, not a bad thing to get a loss.
Really good team. They'll be fine.
Yeah, then Williamsburg won the girls' game over North Adams, and then the final game of the night was a 57-47 win for North Adams over Minford. In that game, Carson Davis with 18 and Dalton Pence with 12.
Yeah, had the privilege to coach against Coach Young. They love their basketball down there, and obviously he's just continues to have great impact on that community with all the people he's coached and the different things. You think about that. That's what I always think about in long-term coaching, how many different people that coaches impact. And so I'm really, really glad that they have that type of event. And you're right. They do it the right way. They have some good matchups. And I know the people down there appreciate it because, again, they love the game.
Yeah, 100%. They are a great place to go watch a game, and it's a great place to call a game as well. And we appreciate C103 getting all of those games on throughout the day. So another good showcase event was over at Portsmouth, which normally I believe it's played at Shawnee State. The Buckeye Elite Showcase ended up over at Portsmouth, and R. Kenneth Hay and Carson Francis were there for. Well, Carson was there 2.5 games. And Kenneth was there for 3. We had interviews with players from the first 3 games. It was going to be the first 4 games, but Athens was unfortunately unable to get a bus there for the girls' game early. And we had an idea of that. When
I was looking forward to that.
Yeah, on our way back. Hopefully they can reschedule. That's the second time Wheelersburg's lost a game that was going to be against a really quality opponent in one of those showcase events because of snow, and it's pretty much been the 2 days it snowed. I do think that they are playing Unietta as a makeup on next Sunday as well. But in that event, Eastern Pike started off with a 58-34 win. Boston Webb, Cade Leist, Aiden Warner were all in double figures for the Eagles. In that one, you can see the Boston Webb and Cade Leist interview over on our socials. And then there's also a game highlight of that for Eastern Pike. Now, our guys did decide to miss Eric Manley's dunk in the game, but the things happen. I know someone had good pictures of it. I saw Eastern had shared it out as well. So Coach Leist will be on the Haynesville Healthcare Coaches Call-In Show on Sunday evening. If you missed it, make sure you go back and rewatch it. Notre Dame with a 72-51 win over Crooksville. Archie West, 21 points in that one, 16 in the first half, or as I typed on here, howled. That was, get him on an interview. It was Barberitz, right? Was the other one in that interview. So, check that one out. I believe we had game highlights on that one as well. West looks like he's going to be a up-and-coming player to keep watching throughout the season. Then a really nice win for Ironton over West, 57-46 in that game. Ashton Lane, Caden Edwards were big-time standouts for the Fighting Tigers. Lane really just took the game over late in it, got most of his points, and pretty much a one little run.
Such a unique athlete, yeah.
Yeah, and he's just a matchup nightmare. And then Will Kegley with 19, and then Logan McIntyre with 17 for West. And it just feels like, they're in a little bit of a lull right now, but I wouldn't expect that to stay for long.
Yeah, they're a really good team. They play a unique style. Sometimes, like right there, you have two guys doing a lot of the scoring. They're going to be a tough out in the postseason.
Yes.
The way they play the 1-3-1 and they take care of the basketball, they're going to be tough to beat. They've got to find a little bit more. I think there's a little bit more in the offensive tank than they've been able to put out so far. Once they find that balance, they could really be a dangerous team.
Yeah, and they're I'm just going to jump on this really quick. It's going to be Division 6 in the Southeast right now. We'll see where they are at. Yeah, so the top 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean, even going to 10. I mean, Belpre, solid. Waterford gets a big one. That Division 6 looks like it's way deeper than it was last year. You have Peebles at the top right now. Valley is second. West is third. Huntington is fourth. Eastern Pike fifth. North Adams sixth. Adena, who's beat Huntington twice, is seventh. Then you got like a Sims Valley, Southeastern, Rock Hill, Belpre, Waterford, and then Eastern. And Eastern Megs has a 1,000-point score, and they've, just not won a lot of games. But
and I would now, if you were an underdog and you had some good guard play that could handle the ball, and you thought you could slow the game down and stay in the game, I would not want to play West though if I felt like they were in an underdog role, because they could be a nightmare matchup.
Yeah, and that would be not fun at all. And I mean, if you're North Adams, I'm sure you're kind of hoping to either move up or drop away from that as maybe a district semi game, because that's just not a super fun matchup. But at the same time, you got a really well-coached team over there at North Adams as well. So then finishing out the day, not a great finish for our local teams, but Schroeder Padilla from Cincinnati beats Fairland 56-53. Miami Valley Christian, also from the Cincinnati area, beats Wheelersburg 76-58. MVCA is 12-2 on the season, so an outstanding team from the Cincinnati area. And then Lewis County, Kentucky beat Portsmouth 65-55 to finish out the night.
Yeah, good lineup there across the board. And, you mentioned some of the losing, but you also mentioned some of the high-level competition. So we talked about teams that are doing a lot of winning, stepping out in terms of who you play. Remember, we talked about that at the beginning of the show. I don't have a problem with that at all in those situations. I think you'll get better from that in the long run.
Yep, I agree completely. So let's jump over to some games to watch this week, or games of the week this week. We got a lot of them, actually. We'll start our last two are streaming games. We're going to do a little bit shorter because we're going to do some game previews that we're going to put out before the show, or before those games go out. So keep an eye out on those on the days of those streams. So our first one, Miami Trace at Jackson on Friday night. What a stretch for Jackson, because on Tuesday they go to Washington. It's just, this is a great 4-game stretch for Jackson. It's just going to make them better and better.
It's funny you mentioned Miami Trace really focused on getting off to the better start, because we just talked about it earlier in the show with Jackson, the importance of playing out in front. Look for Jackson to really refocus and come in. There's a lot of experience there. I know you're going to get a chance tonight, so people by the time they're listening to this, go back and listen to some of the Jackson players you're going to be able to have on, and I'm just real impressed with their maturity and their focus and the way they go about it. You can see a lot of their age and experience in the way they play, and I think that's going to make for an outstanding matchup against Miami Trace.
Yeah, that's a Jackson team that is going to be hungry to bounce back and have a chance to stay in the league race. They got to beat that really good Miami Trace team at home. And, man, Miami Trace has been playing really well lately. And Jackson's been playing really well all throughout the year. Miami Trace beat them by 5 over at Miami Trace. This one should be a big-time game to watch on Friday night. So let's stay on Friday night. We got another big one. This one is going to be in the SOC 3. Wheelersburg at Waverly on Friday night. Man, this is going to be a really fun one. This was going to be one of our games that we were going to stream, but we'll talk about that. The reason why we're not streaming that one coming up in between, because I forgot that's a thing that we can really push as well. But Wheelersburg at Waverly, two teams that are going to play, I feel like a fairly similar style, not a ton of size for Wheelersburg. I thought in that game against Miami Trace, even though Waverly was kind of outclassed in it, they lost pretty sizably. I thought the Myers twins were much more aggressive, and that's going to make
mentioned that too.
That's going to make that team better to have, 5 options on the floor at all times. Where at times it felt like, they still got to get the ball, but it felt like, able to make shots from the elbow and in. And if they can step up and knock down a jumper every once in a while, that's going to make them really difficult to guard, and that's going to make that team difficult to guard because, Paige Alexander can go get it against pretty much anyone. Kazee is going to continue to get better throughout the year, and I know they're without Tegan Hurt, but Landon Russell looked really good in that game. Didn't have the shot down yet, but they're just going to get better and better throughout. And remember, that's a team without a senior.
Carson and I were talking over the weekend at Valley about how Wheelersburg's got a chance to really take a stranglehold on this thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much depth in the middle of that conference, and they're just beating each other to death, that if you're Wheelersburg and you can kind of sense the moment right here in the next week or two, you could really run and hide. So somebody, I can tell you this, Waverly's going to have a lot of SOC buddies rooting for them.
100%.
So if you're Wheelersburg, you could really, really take stranglehold on this conference right now.
Yeah, it should be a really fun game down at Waverly on Friday. When I said, pointed out Waverly doesn't have a senior, Wheelersburg very senior heavy. They only really play 6, so neither team's going to go real deep.
Shows up in the eye test too. They look old. They're strong. They're athletic, and they pass the eye test in a hurry. Yeah.
So this one should be a fun matchup. Rucker and Alexander, and then Bivens hit 6 threes the other night.
Yeah, it's all that.
So I mean, it's a
Had 20 in that game. I think.
It's a team that is just showing different pieces. Then you have like a Landon McGraw who's just outstanding as well. And then, Dorr, I know Woodward, only a freshman. And then, Xavier Miller is the other one. So really only plays 6 guys, but it's 6 really outstanding players. So keep an eye out on that one. That one could be a chance of, maybe an upset, but also should just be a really fun one. And then another fun one on Friday night is going to be actually 2 nights in a row where they're playing. On Thursday, the girls play, and then on Friday, the boys play, both at Eastern Brown. Fayetteville at Eastern Brown. Fayetteville unbeaten in the Shack 2. Eastern Brown unbeaten in the Shack 1.
Well, and look, we've had our eye on that matchup for a while now, and it'll be interesting to see. We talk about great teams handling losing. They don't do it very often, so how do they handle it when it does happen? And Eastern Brown going to come off of that first loss of the season and the overall record. That'll be interesting to see how everybody responds there.
Yeah, now the first time they played, which was in the Brown County Holiday Tournament, Eastern won 50-34. And I won't guarantee that the same thing won't happen. Fayetteville had 4 players take shots in that game. They only had 3 players score. 1 scored 4, and then Charlie Kaufman had 20. Brody Feldhaus had 10. So I mean, really, they did not have any depth at all. So it was almost like Eastern was just cutting everybody else off in that game. In that game, Eastern, had Matthew Dick with a double-double, 14 points, 12 rebounds, but they had 7 guys score out of, that's a game. Carter Cluxton only had 2. So, I mean, if Carter Cluxton's only going to have 2, for Fayetteville, they got to make an adjustment to make sure that happens again, because to me, that's the best chance you have to beat them, is to limit what their bench can do. But like Sam Raymer and Cluxton against Peebles combined for 34 in that game, they only had 4.
When in their loss the other night, it looked like their guards got held in check a little bit too. So some of the front line scoring, but that was a pretty low total that they put up in their loss. So Offensively, I look for some guys to really bounce back and have a big week.
Yeah, so it's going to be a tough one for Fayetteville, but that's one to keep an eye on just because of the implications. And I guarantee Eastern's going to have a lot of people rooting for them from Peebles and Fairfield as well. So that's going to be a big game over at Eastern Brown on Friday night. And then our two streaming games. The first one, like I said, we will be reviewing a little bit on a preview that'll come out the day of. I believe it's going to be you and Kenneth. They're going to be talking about that one for that preview. It's going to be the first one I haven't done. So you better do well on this, Kenneth. And if you don't, I'll edit you out of it. So, which is just because I had to edit it. So, on Tuesday night, our Kingston National Bank SVC game of the week will be Huntington at Piketon. That one should be a really fun matchup. As we said, we'll have a more in-depth preview. But just real quick, what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I'm intrigued by it because, Piketon continues to grow. They've been overwhelmed by some of the elite teams on their schedule over the last couple of weeks. I know they got off to the tough start. They started to really find themselves and put together some wins. They have some nice wins. They beat a really good Wellston team. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes, you go back and forth on Piketon, but when they're right, they're capable. They've got the big presence of Henry down low. They have 4 or 5 kids that have played a lot of varsity basketball now. Over on the Huntington side, I talked early in the year about how their versatility, as it starts to get more experience, you see Baker starting to grow. You see Calvin Hurst starting to grow. We know with Frankie Hurst what you're going to get. You throw in Manson and so forth. But I think early on, some of their depth was going through some of the growing pains of varsity basketball. I think that's why Adena was such a tough matchup for them. Adena went through a little bit of that last year, where this year they're coming out the other side, and I think that showed up in the first half of the year. So now you come into the Huntington Piketon. When Piketon struggles to handle the basketball, that's when they've had some fits. And Huntington can be a little sneaky in their pressure and the way they can do some things. So I would say that's probably where I would start, is Piketon's ability to handle the ball. If they can do that, I think they have some offensive talent. But Huntington's really put together a nice year, and this becomes a really important stretch where if you're Huntington, you want to win the games you're favored in, and I think if you do that, you're really going to like where you end up on the tournament bracket.
Yep, 100% agree. So that's on Tuesday. Make sure you check that one out over on, you're on our YouTube page as well. So then Saturday night, we will have another stream. We're going to get a team from the TVC Hocking. We got Southern at Southeastern. Should be a really fun atmosphere over at Southeastern. First time there this year for us. This Southern team's really talented.
Yeah, I can't wait to see them. I'm going to start some of my film work this week on them, but in following them, I've heard some incredible things. Obviously, very, very talented, especially a couple of their top players. If you're not familiar with Southeastern, on the Southeastern side, they have like 7 kids that'll go on the floor that can score the basketball. So on any given night, they score 6 to 12 points, and you wouldn't be shocked. They too, I go back to Piketon. They too sometimes just struggle to handle the basketball. The other night I'm watching them on film against Uniota, and again, Uniota's as good a defensive team as we have in our coverage area. But like Southeastern scoring the ball early, they're in the game. Halfway through the second quarter, they're hanging around, and all of a sudden, like 3 minutes later, they're down 20 at the half. It's just like and a lot of it's the live ball turnover and the ability to not even give your defense a chance. So Southeastern's a team with some length and some different things, but it sounds like this Southern team will be quite a challenge for them on the defensive end.
Yeah, Reed Branniger, one of the top players overall in our area.
To see him.
Yeah, he's an outstanding player. So that one should be a fun one over. I'm not going to say Londonderry. I got yelled at before about it. Technically Chillicothe. They have a Chillicothe address, 2003 Lancaster Road.
Oh, wow, that's impressive.
It's way close. I worked at.
Is that right, or did you?
No, it's 100% right. It's worked at FedEx forever.
I just remember getting the good chicken across the road at the gas station.
Yeah.
That's why I was always excited to go out there.
Yeah, there you go. I think I've been in that gas station before. I know we got out. It's one of the best compliments we ever got when I was coaching JV. We went there, I was like, guys, we ain't stopping at McDonald's. Like, we're gonna keep going. Like, one of the kids was like, hey, can we stop at the gas station? I'm like, yeah. Make sure you don't have your cleats on. Go in. Kids go in. And you can't have your cleats on the bus anyway. We go in and we go through, everything seems like it's fine. We get back on the bus, and all of a sudden the owner comes out. I'm like, oh no, what did we do? No one better have stole. And, we got like an hour bus ride home. So keep that in mind when you think about like the schools I coached at. Like we had a long trip back, and he's like, Coach, I just want to let you know your kids were perfect. So nobody came with spikes on, and that, like, I just appreciate that much. But then they're all really nice and courteous young men.
It's always good when you get that. And for some reason, you don't trust it when they start to talk.
This is gonna be awful. And it was like, oh, this is great. Yeah. It's a reflection on the coach, 100%. So it's just one of those nice little stores. And I haven't been there for a long time, but it was fun little story to go back to. So let's go to our games to watch this week. So not as big of a schedule because just not that many overall on the schedule this week as far as like Saturday night goes. Let's start on Tuesday. Already kind of mentioned this, Jackson at Washington. That's a huge matchup in the FAC.
Well, with the pace Miami Trace is setting, you just can't afford to give any more ground. So two really, really good teams, going to be tough outs in the tournament. But as far as the league race goes, it's pretty much a must win.
Yep. And then speaking of must wins and having other teams rooting for them, South Webster at Wheelersburg on Tuesday as well.
Kind of what I was talking about a second ago. Wheelersburg has a chance to really kind of put this thing, I won't say away, but certainly make it really, really difficult to catch them. But if someone could step up and get them, that league could get really interesting because there's some depth to that conference.
Oh, it's a whole lot of depth to that conference. So, and then speaking of games where you don't want to look ahead, Lynchburg Clay at Eastern Brown. Lynchburg Clay won their last two games. Denver Clinton, one of the better players in our area as well. So, I mean, they've got some length. They've got some athleticism. It's just putting it all together. If they can do that, it's going to make a really scary team. But that's a tough one on the road at Eastern Brown.
I agree. I watched that matchup. I believe that was opening night, first game of the year. And Eastern Brown, their depth, man, they really put a lot of pressure on you. It'll be interesting to see how far Lynchburg has come since that opening night there when they traveled to Eastern Brown.
Yeah, in their win over Westfall on Saturday, Denver Clinton with 11, Tanner Roberts with 12, Quinn Wells with 13, and then you had Elam Faust and Trevor Niehaus with 8 apiece. So, I mean, you're getting some balance there. Only 5 guys scoring, but all with at least 8 points. So if they can get that, they're going to be in a lot of games. Then let's jump over to Fairfield at Fayetteville. Huge game for Fairfield. Down 3 games in the standings, so you're going to need some help, but you get a chance at Fayetteville. If you can get a win there, then you're right back in the mix.
Well, you're just looking for a win to kind of hang your hat on and get some confidence back. Obviously, very few teams are going to bring the backcourt ability that Fairfield brings there with those two guys, but Fayetteville, a little bit of that depth that you're talking about, it's going to be which team can get a little bit more because as you were reading off some stats earlier, I got to thinking a lot of times these teams that are trying to take that next step, it becomes the depth of your roster. What are you getting from the 4th and 5th starter? Are you able to go to the bench and get some 6, 7, 8 minutes out of those guys as well? So
yeah. Let's stay to conference games, and I'll get to it. There's one big non-conference one we'll get to. What we got, Fairland at Ironton. Kind of a must-win for Fairland just to stay in the league race. And Ironton, Ironton beats them the first time. This one could be a really fun one.
Ironton seems to be the team that is able to dictate tempo. Like when you look at some of their games against some of their top opponents, whatever they are doing, they're kind of dictating how the game's going to be played. And I know that could certainly bother Fairland. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on there.
Yeah, another game to keep an eye on. Fairfield Union at Meigs. This is a big seeding game in Division 4. So a win here for Fairfield Union would mean a lot for them when it comes to the tournament draw. And this one could be a really fun matchup.
Yeah, really good team that had some tournament success last year. And then, the Meigs group, it sounds like they're back to full strength here. So that'll be interesting for sure to take a look at that one.
Yeah, Fairfield Union right now is the 2, Meigs is the 6. So a win here for Meigs would be huge as well because you want to avoid certain matchups. You want to maybe try to get a home game if you have to, if you're in that top.
Yeah, how would you like to be a higher seed there and see Meigs in your bracket?
Yeah, you got a possible Division 1 player, and then a couple more studs as well for Meigs. Not a ton of depth, but they're a team and a coach that's won multi-hundred games, got to the Final Four. You know, that's not a fun matchup to see. Then let's jump over to Friday night. Now, one, you know, we know this as SVC people, but on Tuesday, Unionta at Westfall. Unionta plays horrendously bad at Westfall.
Yeah, you know,
I think Westfall has a lot to do with it.
No, I hear what you're saying there, and here in recent years, Westfall's had some really nice teams. But you know, when I hear people say we don't play well, at some point that's got to be a little bit of a mental thing that you got to look yourself in the mirror and be like, well, hey, come on, you know what I mean? So I think a lot of times what happens is when you go somewhere and you struggle year after year after year, credit to the opponent that they're pretty good. And like in the example you're using, Westfall's had a run of some pretty good guard play and some different things there. But that's a funny topic that you bring up, because I was just talking about this very thing with someone about a week ago, and we were talking about how as a coach you really want to address that with your kids and kind of use it as a motivational thing.
And then you've got let's jump to Friday, and we'll Unionta at Huntington. You know, Huntington playing pretty well overall. This would be a big game for Unionta as they're trying to repeat as SVC champions.
Well, again, it's always one at a time when you're in these title chases. But you're right, at Huntington, you know what happens at the top of the league as you get late in the year. A Wheelersburg going on the road in the SOC, a Unionta going on the road in the SVC, or a Miami Trace playing in the FAC. You start to get everybody's best shot. You know what I mean? So you know you're going to get the elite atmosphere. You know you're going to get the high energy level. And if you're not ready to answer that call every night out, someone's going to get you. So you're right. That challenge at Huntington will be a big one.
And then you've got a rematch of what was a really fun one the first time. Southeastern at Adina. Joey Francis with a 53-footer to win the first time, because the length of the shot has changed every time. It's beyond half court.
It has. The next time I'm in Southeastern, I might walk it off because I have a pretty good feel for where it was.
But yeah, that'll be Saturday night when we're there. So this one should be a really fun one in Frankfurt, as it was a outstanding matchup the first time. So I think it has a chance to be that again. And then a huge game in the SOC 2. We've got Northwest at Eastern Pike on Friday night as well.
Yeah, remember the SOC, if I remember correctly, they started their league a little bit later on the calendar than some. So you're starting to get into some of these heated head-to-head matchups, and you're right. That's going to go a long way in the standings there for sure.
Yeah, and that's going to be a really fun one over in Beaver. So then Saturday, there's a couple games, but just make sure you watch Southern at Southeastern on Saturday night. And then, as we said, Sunday, I have no idea who's even playing. I know Unionta and Wheelersburg are playing down at Shawnee State. No idea on the other game. So I was told one of the games not happening. So we'll kind of see. So just have to hope. I know River City's going to be streaming it, so just check out their stuff. So we'll see what games are posted when they're able to post it, because I'm not sure if they've been told who else playing as well. But I know they'll have the Wheelersburg Unionta games. So I mean that's worth a tune in as well. So.
It should be a great matchup. Again, two conference leaders, and as I said a second ago, if you turn the film on Unionta, the first thing that jumps out at you is, man, they really guard. They've been pretty impressive on the defensive end. They've been up and down on the offensive end. Wheelersburg's obviously going to present quite a challenge in that area in terms of bigger, faster, stronger. That would probably be the biggest thing that jumps out at me is, can Unionta handle Berg's physicality? And I think that'll have a lot to do with what kind of game breaks out.
Yeah, but then we'll explain why we're not going to be at the, we had streams scheduled on Thursday and Friday. We will no longer have those. Now, we had, with Southern Ohio Sports Authority, we cover all sports. We cover some sports more than others. But one of the big agreements that we have is we've been able to stream a lot of stuff at the VA. We've been fortunate enough to be able to get in with VA Memorial Stadium, work with the Chillicothe Paints a little bit, and we've been able to get there, stream some baseball. We got there for a lot of tournament games throughout the year, so we appreciate them. One of the things that we got to do last summer was we were able to make an agreement, I think it may not even been technically announced yet, but we've been able to make an agreement with the Baseball Coach Association of Ohio, or it's the Ohio High School Baseball Coach Association. Their Hall of Fame banquet and what's it called exactly? The entire, not a showcase, but
Just the coaches clinic.
yeah, the coaches clinic. The coaches clinic will be this week at the Hilton in Easton in Columbus. So we will actually be there Thursday and Friday. Friday, if you look through our streaming schedule, you'll see the OHS BCA Hall of Fame ceremony, or the banquet, will be live streamed. So we'll be live streaming that event 12:55 on Friday. You're going to see a lot of cool stuff coming out through our SOSA YouTube page from the event. Now, that is why we are not going to be streaming on Thursday or Friday this week, but should be a really fun opportunity for us. It'll be just walk through.
I didn't know if we could.
No, it's good. I'm not editing it. We got some guests coming in. So, it's a really cool opportunity that we have to be able to go to do this event. And that's one of the reasons why we, won't be live streaming. But it's a really cool event.
Oh, it really is. It'll be the first time in 3 decades that I'm not attending as a coach. And but if you haven't had a chance to go up there before, it's just amazing. They have an awesome lineup of speakers, and I think most years throughout my career, Ohio stayed in the top 5 in terms of the size of their coaches association. I think they've been right up there with the Texas, California type states. So it's been really, really impressive, and the Hall of Fame banquet that you're talking about is well attended, and I think this gives an opportunity for a lot of those families, a lot of those fans, right? People that and former players and different things to kind of be able to take it in and hear some of the speeches so far. I was thrilled to death when I heard SOSA announce that connection with the Coaches Association.
Yeah, on Thursday they're having a Hall of Fame roundtable that we're filming, and then we're actually, thankfully, all of the other speakers are going to be there, including former Tennessee coach and now San Francisco Giants manager Tony Vitello is ending the night on Thursday night. So we'll have some stuff from what we can put out there. So I don't know if he's being paid enough to where he's going to be like, yeah.
Well,
whatever.
and again, that's just an example of, that's not like just something abnormal. That's the kind of speaker that you'll see up there every year. I mean, they have some of the who's who in terms of some of the people I've been privileged to hear over the years.
Yeah, it's an outstanding event, and we look forward to being a small part of it this year. And that is why we'll still have our normal coverage of those games on Thursday and Friday, but it just won't be on the live stream variety. So just keep an eye out for us there. Now let's jump over to girls basketball. We've got we're going to do something a little bit different when we get into this, but overall, it's going to be talking a lot of different teams and whatnot throughout. So let's start with what was a really good game on Monday. Wheelersburg with a 45-39 win over Waverly to, at the time, create a tie at the top of the SOC3 because West was upset by Valley, but then actually later in the week, Waverly lost to South Webster. Wheelersburg held serve, so Wheelersburg now with a 1-game lead. So, in this game, Wheelersburg's Ava Artrip was just outstanding. A sophomore, the way she controlled the pace of the game was just so outstanding, so impressive. She ended up with 17 points. She goes 4 for 4 in the last minute from the free throw line to help put the game away. Jalen Prather had 6 points. All of them were in the fourth quarter. She also had 7 rebounds. She hit a couple jumpers to start the fourth quarter, and then hit 2 free throws in the last minute as well to help create the final score. But overall, for Wheelersburg, they had a lot of different players that stepped up. Peyton May, 7 points, 12 rebounds. Lainey Skeens, only a freshman, had 9 points, including a couple threes. Late in the first half, Wheelersburg was kind of scuffling offensively, and then Skeens and Artrip each hit 2 threes in the last minute and a half to make that, give them a lead that they never gave up. And you can read about this game on the SOSA Ohio website, my article on it. Derek had a lot of pictures as well. now 9-4 on the season for Wheelersburg. They got a tough one, coming up obviously with Unietta on Sunday, but this is a Wheelersburg team that really well coached. Coach Spradlin over 400 career wins, just an outstanding program.
I watched the game live and was following your updates and some of the stats he had out on it and so forth, and I was impressed. Waverly had entered the game on quite a hot streak there, and they were playing really, really well. You could see the confidence. They were really taking it to Wheelersburg in certain areas. But then on the counter of that, I was impressed with Wheelersburg's maturity and no panic.
Yes.
They were able to just kind of withstand it a little bit. And as you mentioned, when it got into the second half, they made the necessary plays to get back in front, and once they got out in front, they did all the necessary things down the stretch to win the game.
Yeah, Waverly had won 8 straight games coming into that contest, and it broke that, but also kind of sent them a really tough week for Waverly overall. But let's talk about the good stuff first. So in that game, Paige O'Brien, 17 points, 11 rebounds, 5 blocks in the game. She was just such an impact player on both ends of the floor. But then later in the week, on Saturday, in their game against McLean, she was able to get her 1,000th career point to go along with 500 career rebounds. Just a really, really nice all-around player for, Coach Bonifield. Just, one of the best athletes in the area as well.
Yes.
I think she's won the track, Southeast District Athlete of the Year the last couple of years, and is going to have a chance at the next level to continue to compete in those sports as well.
The length and the athleticism is the first thing that jumps out at you when you watch Paige play, and then obviously as the season goes on, she's continued to add things to her skill set from earlier in her career to now. And as you said, that's all equaled up to 1,000 points. But as we've said, with so many 1,000 points, 1,000-point scores, I'm equally impressed with how many ways she impacts the game. You mentioned the rebounding. 5 blocks. What that does to your teammates' confidence to pressure the basketball, knowing you're on the back end there to protect the rim. I can't tell you enough on the defensive end what that means. So she's had a terrific run. They're not done yet. Again, you'll hear me say this a lot, another dangerous team that I wouldn't be thrilled to see in my bracket.
Yeah, because they've got some nice overall pieces. Like Sadie Royster seems like she's really came along throughout the year as an overall player. Callie Knight, only a freshman. Late in that game, she started to really, make an impact on the game, getting to the basket. She can also step outside and shoot the ball as well. Taryn Gillett is another nice player for them. So they've got 4 pretty good players, and then they've got some nice depth. I know Hadley Ramsey, sophomore, got hurt in that game. Hopefully she's able to come back soon. But they were kind of stuck into a situation of, they were just they had 3 of their 8 players on the roster foul out. They were down to, as Coach Hoop said last week on the Haynesville Healthcare Coaches College show, of my team is on the court. It's just, just kind of like from Hoosiers. So, but overall for them, I know it's a tough week, but, I would say the 8-game winning streak says a lot more about them than the 3-game losing streak. So keep an eye out on Waverly throughout the season. So we're going to jump right into our standout performances because we've got some really talented players to highlight on this. We want to start off with the first of our 1,000-point scores from Round Town. Circleville's Addison Edgington scores her 1,000th point, only a junior, and she missed a good bit of her freshman year as well. Just what an overall player. She does what she does so well, and you can't teach that. You can't teach players that don't try to do way too much. Every once in a while she'll step outside from 3, but she can shoot it. But she's going to use her left hand. She's going to use the glass. She's not going to try to be too cool and just lay it up and finger roll it in. She's going to use the glass and is going to use that size, and she's going to do it really well.
She's a really efficient player. When I study her game, that's what jumps out at me. I love her positioning. She anticipates where the next pass is going to go, and she makes it really easy on her guards. She's very available. She can score around the rim, as you mentioned. It started to year by year be able to step out and increase the range. Then the other thing, we talked about this on our stream, her ability to convert at the free throw line. When you look at a 1,000-point score, there's a lot of kids that that would be in her situation that would still be stuck on the 875, 900 because of their inability to convert at the line. I think last check, she shoots it up around 75%.
Yep.
I mean, so you're talking about someone who is going to get there a lot because of the physicality. Teams try their best to contain or stop her. And therefore, she gets that charity stripe. And then when she gets there, she makes you pay.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about her and her team coming up in the next segment. But she had a big game against their huge opponent coming up this week. They continue to have a really nice season over at Circleville. So another player, only a junior, getting 1,000 career points already from Federal Hocking, Brenlee Cottrell, who is the complete opposite of size as Edgington. She is a small guard, but man, she is one of the quickest players in our area. She can shoot it, she can get to the rim, and man, she's super double tough.
Yeah, she's really dynamic, and I'll tell you this, John, is I started to really follow a little bit more of Fed Hoc there probably 3 or 4 years ago. They're a team that started to really offensively. They like to turn it loose. They like to go a little bit, and this year, knowing they had a nice team, they haven't held anything back on their schedule.
Right.
So she's doing this against some pretty good competition, and she's doing it in some winning in terms of having her team up in the conference race, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But yeah, she's really fun to watch. And as you said, these kids doing this just their junior year, and still with a third of their junior year left, that they could go on to put quite a total up.
Yeah, they are a outstanding team. Even though maybe record would not say the same, but they're a team in that Division 6.
Goes back to who they play.
It goes back to who they play, and that's why they're going to be better throughout the year. And plus, that TVC Hocking is really tough this season because I mean, you had Waterford coming off a state championship, and yeah, they had lose three starters that are outstanding, but man, they are starting to really turn it on. They've been really good. And then you've got Eastern Megs, who's outstanding. Belpre has not won a lot of games, but they still have one of the better players in the league. Trimble is Trimble. It's a really good team. And I know Southern's got some really good athletes, and they haven't won a league game yet. So you wouldn't say that about teams in other leagues that haven't won a league game. Right, but man, they are got some really nice pieces as well. So let's jump to a team that we don't cover a ton here, which would be Amanda Clear Creek, not having a great season, but we've seen her over the last couple of years. Taylor Evans scores her 1,000th career point. She's going to go on and play at Ohio Dominican, and I think that says a lot about a kid if you're able to sign and your team's not having a lot of success, because it's just saying, like, we can see what you can do. And we've seen her. We've had her on live stream a couple different times over the last few years. Just a really good overall player. Good
player. And I agree with you. They're continuing to compete. And again, against good competition. You know what I mean? Like night in, night out. The name's obviously at the top of the scouting report, yet continuing to go out, continuing to produce. I think that says a lot about the overall skill set of the young lady.
Yeah, it's a really tough league overall, but overall, not seeing a whole lot of wins coming out, but she's a really talented player that can score a variety of different ways, and that's what has resulted in a career earning 1,000 points and a chance to play at the Division II level in college. So let's jump to a team having a bit more success, and this one was this just felt like it was just a matter of time coming. Uniota's Kiara Beard. I'm trying to remember what they called her last week on the Coaches Calling show. Just kind of messing with her. I don't want to say it wrong because I don't want to get her even more upset over it. But Kiara Beard, one of the best shooters in our area. Great kid overall. She had 9 triples in a win over Westfall. A career high 37 points. The first time they played Westfall, she had 8. So it just felt like it was a matter of time. And anytime you can say that you tied or broke a record that Aubrey Eblin had at Uniota, you've done a whole lot, and a pretty spectacular record to break, and a spectacular performance from Beard.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier in the year, graduated with Aubrey, really understood her game quite well, and went on to play at the highest level of college basketball, and her senior year there led Uniota to the Final Four. A terrific player, and Beard's a really good shooter. You know what jumped out at me about this, John, was how much her teammates wanted her to get.
Yes.
So you start to see that, and you're in the studio one week talking about Miley Smith scoring 45 points, and the next week she's going out of her way to make sure a teammate gets as many looks as possible to break a record of her own.
Yeah, and that just says a whole lot for that UDOTA team. And then another good win for them on Saturday. They beat Olentangy Berlin. She scored 21 in that game to help them move to 13-1. And in that game, Miley Smith with 29 points and was just outstanding overall. She is now 7th in SVC history in scoring. As we mentioned last week, she's the top of the UDOTA scoring list as well. She's scored over 1,800 career points.
Well, knocking on the door 2,000, and then you look at their potential of tournament success. She's going to pick up even more games. So, terrific player from day one of her freshman year to her senior year. The biggest compliment I would give her is she's continued to add to her game. And no way have you ever watched her play year to year and say, she's the same player. I see significant things she's added to her game year in, year out, and that says something about the young lady's work ethic.
Yeah, they're 13-1. They do play an unbeaten Harvest Prep on Monday, which will be coming, I think is right around the time that we're going to be sending this out. So that's going to be a game to keep in mind. So let's jump to another one of the classics. This one was the classic in the country. Portsmouth's Kiki Woods was unbelievable. 31 points for the Trojans. They are now 11-2 on the season. 31 points. Here's where it gets crazy. It was a 60-33 win over Granville. The Blue Aces came into the game 12-0 and were ranked 17th in all of Ohio, regardless of division. And they just absolutely whomped them. 60-33. Kiki Woods with 31 points, and it seems like Portsmouth really starting to get things tightened up. That it wasn't like they were struggling because they lost to two really good teams so far. But 11-2, you just really hammer a really good Granville team, and overall just a really impressive performance for the Trojans. Sienna Allen had 12 points, the OU commit, and then also Haven Carter had 10 points in that game as well.
Well, no one's ever questioned their ability to guard. They really get after you and they guard. I think the biggest thing is when they're getting each of their weapons off on the same night, and then all of a sudden now they become a nightmare matchup for other teams, even a Granville type team, and that was on showcase here.
Yep. So outstanding performance for Portsmouth and Kiki Woods. So they play, I believe, on Monday in that as well. So we'll talk about that a little bit more next week, and then we'll have a big preview for the week after because we got a pretty big one for them coming up in league play. So let's talk about some league stuff now. So we're going to talk conference standings. So when we talk conference standings, it's going to be really like, hey, here's the top teams in the conference. Here's some of the games to watch for this week in the in conference play. If we have any non-conference games, we'll talk about them at the end of that. So conference standings, we'll start alphabetically, and then I really went deep in the alphabetical order of spelling out the first name of the league because I'm a dork. So let's start in the FAC. Right now, McLean is 7-0. Hillsborough 6-1. So a really big one. That one's I think we'll talk about next week as well because that's going to be the rematch over there. But it may not have as much, it may not be that big of a deal if on Wednesday Hillsborough does not take care of business at home against a much improved Washington Courthouse team.
Well, Courthouse, I believe dropped below 500 there in the league, but boy, have they been able to stick their nose in and really challenge some of these top teams. I know McLean had quite the scare here recently with them and so forth. But what jumps out at you there, John, is McLean at 7-0, Hillsborough at 6-1. Is Davis and Pryor are just elite. You open up their stat page on their league leaders and they just. It's not just their scoring. Davis is first in scoring, first in rebounding, third in assists. Pryor goes second, and fifth, respectively. So you're just talking about two stars that just completely impact the game in every way possible, and then that makes the game easy or easier for everybody else around them.
Yeah, and they're teams that there's a reason why they perform at such a high level. We'll actually have both of them on stream in the next 2 weeks, both on Mondays. First one is going to be McLean hosting Piketon on Monday this coming week, and then the week after will be Hillsborough hosting North Adams on that next Monday. So it should be a couple of really good games. So we get to see those two in person for the first time this year. I've seen McLean, you've seen them on film, and it's just, going to be an outstanding team. So let's jump over to the Mid-State League Buckeye, which is the one that, we cover. Mid-State League Buckeye, Circleville at the top at 7-0, Logan Elm at 5-1. I know Liberty Union's kind of hanging around. I think they have 3 losses. I
think Liberty Union and Fairfield Union might be at 3 losses in that one.
And right now Circleville at 7-0. They only play, I guess they play 12 league games. So I mean, they're still in it. But huge one on Tuesday. Circleville at Logan Elm on Tuesday night. I know Derek is going to be there covering that game. It was 63-47 win for Circleville the first time. That is Logan Elm's only loss on the season. If Logan Elm can get out, knock down some shots, they have their school's all-time leading scorer in Keanu Ingram. But, man, they've got some really talented players. This one should be a really fun one.
Well, it's such a contrasting type of style from the roster standpoint. We highlighted Edgington and the incredible career that she's having already just now in her junior year, and she presents such a mismatch for Logan Elm. No one would ever doubt Logan Elm's skill set at the guard positions across the board, but this is quite a challenge for them. I think they're going to have to, as you said, shoot the 3 ball and score some points. But I'm more concerned on the defensive end. Can their guards step up on the defensive end and provide the type of ball pressure? The best way to guard the post sometimes is to pressure the perimeter and not make it so easy for the ball to get in there. Because I think it's been more than proven that if the ball gets in there, you're not going to like the way it ends if you're rooting against Circleville, right? So if you're Logan Elm, you're going to handle the ball. You're going to shoot the 3. You hope you're hitting and can score some points. But I think this comes down to their perimeter defense more so than the offense.
Then let's go to the Ohio Valley Conference. You've got Fairland at 8-0, Portsmouth 8-1. Colgare's having a really nice year as well. But it's these two. It's Fairland, Portsmouth.
Yeah, enough said. I mean, I enjoyed your guys' call earlier in the year. You and Carson had that one, and I mean, you're talking, it's one thing to have the conference on the line, but it's always unique in Southeast Ohio when 2 teams get together and you get the privilege of watching 2 teams that are more on like a Final Four stage than they are an OVC championship stage.
Exactly. So also just saw this score for the first time on the day. Fairland put it on Piketon North today, 62-47. So, I mean, 2 really good wins against teams out of the Columbus area or the Central District, more or less, for Fairland and Portsmouth. So, really nice wins.
I mean, that's what we're talking about, too. They're 2 Southeast District teams that they can go on a statewide stage and represent us just fine.
Yep, and then which they have done over the last few years as well. So, let's go to the Scioto Valley Conference. Ignore the SVC part of it. We're going Scioto County or Scioto Valley Conference.
I didn't know.
SC is before SO. So Unietta at 9-0, Piketon 8-1, and then Adina hanging around still 7-2. You got a couple of big ones this week. Adina at Unietta Thursday. That game was, I think, way more competitive than people expected the first time. And that's an Adina team that they've got some really nice pieces. Marley Hocking, one of the best players in the league. And then Saturday, Piketon at Adina. Could be a really big standings game, but it also could keep Piketon in the league race as well.
Well, again, if you're Piketon, that's been the challenge that I put out there all year long. Can you get yourself to that 12-win mark and separate yourself from the rest of the league? Obviously, what Uniota's assembled there during this stretch of years is very unique, but so far Piketon's been able to do that. And you mentioned Adina. I think they deserve some credit, too. I went home late last night after our stream and watched the Adina Paint Valley game, and Paint Valley played out in front. Adina comes back. Paint Valley's up 6 with 7 minutes to go, and Adina just goes down to lockdown. Paint Valley couldn't score for like the next 6.5 minutes. Howcome's so good.
Yeah.
I mean, she had 21 of their 37 or whatever it was, and she's just so strong. She shoots the 3. Just a really, really good player. So Adina, Looks like they're going to compete in that 3-hole. The Adena Piketon head-to-head is important. Obviously, the Piketon Uniota is too. It's just I think we all agree that the Uniota team's on a little bit of a different level.
So I want to make sure to keep mention of Piketon and Adena in that one. So Shack 1, Southern Hills. So SO. Once again, I really thought this one out. Just so you know, Eastern Brown and North Adams both 7-2. In their conference, which now I'm going to jump over to the Shack 2 because you've got Fayetteville at 7-0, White Oak at 5-3, probably out of it. But the huge game on Thursday is Fayetteville at Eastern Brown, and a lot of people in Seaman are going to be rooting for the Rockets in that one.
Yeah, no question. And John, what jumps out at me, here's some numbers. We're sitting there talking about teams that struggle to score. North Adams with Burns and Pistol, they get 34 a night for you. I mean, there's some teams that are just trying to figure out a way to get to 35 or 40, right? So when those two go out and get 34, it makes the game a lot easier to play. And then on the Fayetteville side, what you love about them, you have to go all the way down to 11th in the conference before you find their leading scorer, Rummel at 11, but then Murphy 11, Barber 9.8, Carler at 9.3, then the other Carler 8.9. 4 of the top 21 scores in the league, but yet they don't have anyone in the top 10, then 3 of the top 5 assist kids. So you talk about just offense from a North Adams or a Fayetteville, and then obviously the fundamentals and the way Eastern Brown plays. I guess the reason I throw that out there is because when you have that type of offensive depth, the game just becomes so much easier to play. I see so many good defensive basketball teams that they simply cannot put the orange thing in the other orange thing up there, and it's got to be the most frustrating thing to watch.
Yeah, but that should be a really fun game. We weren't sure on Eastern, like what was going to happen because they had a couple of big time rotation pieces that had to sit the second half of the year, and they just keep winning. And Sophia all averaging 14.6 a game has been really good for them. It seems like a senior, Alyssa Johnson's starting to really come on for them as well. And it just gives them a lot of different pieces. They did lose by 6 to Fayetteville in the Brown County Classic. That was a really good game. And, Eastern, over the last 4 games are 4-0, and only one of them was within single digits.
But if you remember, Coach talked to you about that. They knew it was coming, and it was one of those things where they wanted to get as much out of it as they could early in the year, but then they understood they were going to have to kind of, have a little bit of a re-identification, in terms of what they were going to do there, and it sounds like they're doing it.
Yep, and that's why they are at 11-3 overall. Coach Pickerel will be on the Haynesville Healthcare Coaches College Show on Sunday night as well, because they've got the big thing that we'll talk about coming up here in a minute too. So SOC 1, Green is now 6-0, Clay 4-2. That league is all but decided at this point because Green beat Clay twice already. So, but still a big one on Thursday. Notre Dame at Green. A chance for Green to, I think, lock the league up at that point.
Yeah, Green appears next level in that league. I mean, obviously, enjoyed listening to her interview on your show there. It's been a couple weeks now, I think, and obviously. Led by a terrific player and so forth there. But I've been impressed with Clay's and Notre Dame. They seem to be solid teams that could make some noise in the tournament. But in terms of that league, I think Green's certainly another level ahead.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So then let's go to the SOC 2. This one's been really interesting because they just struggled in the non-league overall as a league. But Sims Valley 4-0, South Gaia 4-1 seem like they've kind of separated themselves a little bit.
Yeah, I think you're right. And look, I think sometimes you play those non-league games, and we talk about who you play. Well, when you're in a position where you can compete in your league, you don't mind challenging yourself because winning a league title becomes a legitimate thing. Sometimes I think what happens is you get caught out in no man's lane. That's where the schedule can really get you. But in what you're talking about here is some teams that are pretty well prepared and battle tested, and now they're going to come down the stretch and a couple different teams with a chance to compete for that title.
Yeah, I know. South Gaia, we saw them a couple years ago down at North Adams. Really liked what their JV unit had, and you could tell they're a well-coached group. And Sus Valley's got some really good athletes as well. So nicely done for those two at the top of their league. Then the SOC 3, we talked about a little bit earlier, but Wheelersburg right now 5-1, Waverly 4-2. West starting to fall apart a little bit, dealing with some injuries, but They're still a team that you don't want to sleep on throughout the rest of the season. But Thursday night, a couple of big ones for the league overall is you got Waverly at Valley and then Minford at Wheelersburg. If either of those teams don't come in serious, they can be easily beaten because Valley and Minford, outstanding teams as well.
Yeah, I know with Valley, Caitlin Queen had double-double. They're an all-around game. Valley, I think 7-6 now when I check that. And again, just kind of we watch it in volleyball. In volleyball we thought they were a year away. Well, then all of a sudden you get in the postseason and they're in the region. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So like, it's interesting to watch these teams grow. And then as some of these conferences go separate ways in the tournament, that's when you can get some of those special runs.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that's going to keep the SOC3 race really interesting all along the end of the year. So then you've got TVC Hocking. This is the one I was talking about earlier of like, this league's nuts. Eastern Megs, 6-2. Fetter Hocking, 5-2. Waterford, 4-2. Trimble, 4-3. So you've got 4 teams that still have a chance out of the 6. And you have to keep in mind that this is a league that they've got, I believe, an odd amount. So that's why you have some different records here. But you got a big one on Thursday, almost an elimination game. You've got Trimble at Waterford.
Yeah, anytime you get this late in the year and you still have 4 teams still alive, that tells you something about. Now, some people might pick at it and say it's not as good. Some people might say it's really good. Which one is? Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe the postseason will tell us that. But what I know it is exciting.
Yeah,
and we know that these programs that have had some success in recent years. That particular conference has been more than represented at the highest level of the state. So, I'm excited to be sitting here a week or two from now and have a better picture. But I think right now it'd be hard to argue that any of those teams, if they catch fire at the right time, would have a chance.
Yep, 100% agree. And then you got the TVC Ohio, Athens at 5-0, Vinton County at 5-2. So it feels like Athens probably has the league won again. But a huge one on Thursday, Athens at Alexander.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Athens seems to be able to separate. I mean, Vinton County at 2 lost, everyone else at 3. Athens is just able to do some things defensively that separate that team from the rest of that conference. And I think it would take something pretty drastic for them to fall behind. But I say that, if someone gets them, now all of a sudden down the stretch, someone may have an opportunity to share a piece of the pie late in the year. But I really like the Athens team when I've had a chance to see them.
Yep, I agree with that completely. So now we're going to jump to our game of the week, which we're really going to it's going to be just a small one as well because it's going to be a streaming game that we're doing on Monday. So we're going to shoot a preview for it here in about 20 minutes, I would say. Last week I said, we're going to go 10 minutes, and you kind of made fun of me, and it was 11. It was really close.
I was just saying that, every now and then we've been known to.
You were calling me a liar. Oh. And I think you were right to do so. So, but our streaming game of the week will be on Monday. Should be a really fun one. Over in Greenfield, you're going to have Piketon at McLean. Monday night should be really fun.
It is. And again, it's one of those non-conference matchups that kind of test both teams here as we get down the stretch. And this McLean team has great physicality, but I'll give Piketon credit. The older this group gets, they've started to mix it up a little bit more, and I've noticed them really improve defensively. They've improved in on their rebounding, on some of the 50-50 balls, just some of those things. With the way the game is in today's time, it's so physical. This will be quite a test for them because so far they've struggled. The teams that have given them the biggest fits are the teams that play a little bit more like them but play it better. Logan Elm and Uniota, things like that, where this team will give a nice test. I know you had a chance to watch them play. Was it West early in the year? I think this could be. Was that the Piketon?
It was Waverly.
Okay, earlier in the year. No, I thought a couple of nights. You watched West play someone else.
West and North Addison.
Okay. Remember, Piketon, I believe, played West early in the year as well. And I remember listening to you talk about West and some of the problems in that matchup. I think this is a great test for Piketon to see how far they've come, and should be a great game.
Bro, and right now, Piketon is in, the spot they want to be. I don't know. Well, I think there might be 3 district champions, so I think the 3 and 4 would be together. So 3 and 4 don't matter as much, but this would be a really big win for them to try to stay in that 3 spot,
no question.
because you don't want to go into a district with Portsmouth and Fairland. Now, Piketon was the team that really played Portsmouth pretty much the best until I think it was like the state championship game.
Wow.
So I mean,
That's great, but I wouldn't want to do it again.
I still wouldn't want to do it. Yeah, so this is a really big game for Piketon when it comes to seeding wise as well. Let me jump over. Might as well do it because I got it pulled up to Division 4 just to see for McLean. So McLean right now is sitting at the 2. They're behind Logan Elm, who beat them early to start the year. But right now, the 2 would probably match up with Circleville as the 3. So maybe if you can get a win and maybe you jump to the 1.
There's good depth in that.
Yeah, there's really good depth because you got Hillsborough at the 4, Waverly at the 5, Warren, who's got one of the best players if she's healthy. I know she's been hurt throughout the year, or really her career, is at the 6. So, I mean, Fairfield Union, who goes to the state last year, is in the 8 with some really good guard play. So, keep an eye out on that in Division 4 as well. So this one should be a really fun game on Monday night. Me and you will have the call on that. Kenneth will have the camera. I know he is sitting over there. What'd you open up? You can talk. Sprite Cranberry. All right. Not one of our sponsors, but it's okay. We don't do a great job of covering who our sponsors actually are on this show. So we do appreciate our sponsor of Perfection One. If you do meet them, you'll find out why they're highly recommended. Hopefully, well, if you meet them by accident. They have buildings and not dealerships, but they have shops. Man, I couldn't think of the name. They have shops in Pickaway, Pike, and Ross County as well. So we appreciate Perfection One, and as always, we're in the Chillicothe Sports Card Studio as well. So let's go to our games to watch for the week. So games to watch, not a whole lot on this week's list. We're going to kind of go through it pretty quickly. But on Monday, obviously, we want you to watch Piketon at McLean, but you got Trimble at Alexander. That's going to be an interesting non-conference game, kind of a crossover game in the TBC. Miami Trace at Eastern Brown. We'll see if Eastern Brown, how they can deal with Gracie Lovett, because, man, she can really score the basketball. And then Green at Valley. I think that's got a chance to be an interesting one.
That is an interesting one there, just to see if some of the Valley athletes can maybe guard Green at a little bit higher level than maybe the lower level the SOC's been able to do so. Also intrigued by that Trimble Alexander, TVC Hocking, TVC Ohio. Alexander's probably, I don't want to speak for them. They've had a nice year, but they probably have let 1 or 2 get away. I think they probably felt like they would be a bigger player than in the Ohio this year. Trimble, obviously, right there down the stretches you just highlighted. That becomes a pretty big test for them playing against the Lady Spartans.
Yeah, so good chance there as well. Then let's jump to Saturday. Because now when we did the conference standings, we talked about a lot of the games to watch throughout the week. So that's why this segment is going to be so much shorter this week. But Saturday, you've got Waverly at Miami Trace. That's another one. Gracie Lovett, Paige O'Brien, 2 really good players.
Well, it really is. And again, Waverly continuing to improve. They had the long winning streak. They've come on some hard times. This would be a nice little signature type win for them to get in the non-league going in the tournament. Miami Trace, you feel the same way. Miami Trace has started to play pretty well. I watched them early in the year, and then in the middle of the year, I wasn't sure which way they were going to go. They've honestly stayed pretty competitive. So the winner of that game, I think, could really help their draw status, because by the end of next week, we're going to be getting real close to Selection Sunday in the high school ranks.
Yep. So we'll talk about that even more next week. We'll probably do some RPI rundown next week, as we've done like a very slight version of it this week. And then we got a really cool event on Saturday. The 6th annual Winter Hoops Classic at Eastern Brown. We've been down there a couple of different times. I think technically our first ever live stream was at Eastern Brown. Now, we did a stream, but it was recorded so Jacob could see how it was, and I called it, it's not good. Like, for me, like I was rough at first. I'm still not very good, but that's why we brought Shayne along. But it's you got to improve it. You got to improve whatever you can. So, but we were able to get down there a couple years ago, and I think Kenneth, were you there? Winter Hoops Classic down at Eastern Brown. You didn't get an orange shirt?
Nope.
Okay, so there you go. Kenneth spoke. So, must have been Carson. So we were down there. They do things really well. Like it's all these showcase events. They do things really well overall at these showcase events. So
you play in these events too, and it gives you a little bit more. I know they use the home, court a little bit or whatever, but it gives you some tournament feel. The neutral site, some different types of opponents. I've seen some that are not the greatest experience, but most of these that last year, like you see 6th annual here, obviously it's going well enough to where people want to go back to it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it should be a really fun event. Coach Pickerel and his staff do a really good job. And first class, I believe this is going to be a C103. I believe they're going to be streaming this one as well. So it's going to start. I'm going to just go in order. Goshen at Eastern Brown is going to be the first game of the day. Medford against White Oak being the second game. That should be a really fun one. If Medford can make some shots, that could be a really interesting matchup. West Union versus Williamsburg. Peebles against Cincinnati Woodward. I'm guessing. I don't think it's Toledo Woodward. So Green against Cincinnati Wyoming. That'll be one of those showcase events for Green. Portsmouth West against Western Brown. Western Brown having a really good season. Hopefully West can get healthy before that one. McLean against North Adams. That's a really fun matchup. That's going to be some kind of a clash of styles in that one. And then the last game of the night is going to be Hillsborough against Fayetteville. Speaking of clash of the styles, that's a really good test for that really good Fayetteville team.
Well, you read off a lot of great matchups, but I'll be honest, the first place my eyes went when you had given me the list of games, there was that Green, Wyoming, just because for Green, they're another team. You have Fairland and Portsmouth there in the one division, but then Green, they're a team that they're starting to set their sights on. Hey, we want to take that next step in the tournament, and we want to go play on the highest stage possible. So having these opportunities just to play against that level of athlete can go a long way in helping them do that.
Yeah, so it's should be a really fun event. 6th annual Winter Hoops Classic at Eastern Brown. Just a couple things before we go. That's our last thing on our schedule. So, make sure you check out SOSA the Dugout, sosaohio.com/the dugout. That way you can book your times. There'll be a commercial. There'll be pictures out so you can see exactly what it is. But if you trust a couple of old baseball guys, you can trust us on it's.
I said it earlier in the show. I mean, you owe it to yourself to at least try it one time to see what it could offer you and your kids in your program.
Yeah, so it should be outstanding there. This Friday, we will be live streaming the OHSBCA Hall of Fame banquet. That's going to be 12:55 on our YouTube page as well. So check that out if you're a fan of baseball to hear some really historic coaches talk there. And we'll have a lot of content out throughout that. But this week, Monday, Piketon at McLean on live stream. Tuesday, our Kingston National Bank SBC Game of the Week, which will have Kenneth Hay on the call, Huntington at Piketon. And then Saturday, we will have Southern at Southeastern. Those will be our 3 streaming games this week. I'm sure you're going to be able to see some of those other really good games streamed by other companies as well. So keep an eye out for those. As always, make sure you make sure it's their actual page and it's not going somewhere else and you don't have to pay. If you have to pay, triple check it. Like, for us and the other companies in the Southeast Ohio, you do not have to pay for your for these live streams, so make sure you keep that in mind as well. It's always a great service as well. So, you got anything else?
Great week. Looking forward to a pretty busy week on the streams, and not being able to go up to the clinic this year for the first time in forever. I'm looking forward to some of the coverage that I'll be able to follow on SOSA.
Yeah, it should be a really fun week overall. Look forward to seeing a lot of you out at the games as well. One of our favorite things to do is to talk to different people about different teams and everything as well. So for our producer today, Kenneth Hay, for Shayne Combs, I'm John Bruce. You've been watching SOSA Overtime, presented by Perfection One. Have a great rest of your week.